Your be all you can be is an illusion. Your education can't never be taken away from you. It's an illusion. The man got you paying for it. And if you don't pay him, he's going to take everything you got. Otherwise, he's going to void your degree out. The same like I told you, baby. I had teachers that said, baby, they can beat you. They can do it, but they can't take your education. I'm saying, look at that lady like, lady, do you know how dumb I am? That was the worst speech somebody gave me. That old black lady, that teacher, now I was in her class. She should have known I didn't know nothing. Why don't you try to take my education? I'm hearing them saying about dumbing down a sack of rocks. She talking about taking my education. I'm like, they can have it. What are they going to give me for it? Consciousness. There's a lot of things people can do to you and they get you unconscious. You have to become conscious of your situation or your surroundings. Every one of us, you have to become conscious.
If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. In eternal blackness, in the midst of the darkest night, proteins and minerals exist within specks of light. Solids, liquids, and gases, and sparks of light within infinite lengths and widths and depths and heights. No beginning or ending, with 7 dimensions, enough space for more than 1 million worlds and inventions to travel through time, with enough room to be the wound of the Most High's great mind, which He would soon make shine. With intelligent elements, insight that He would gather in the realms of relativity. Electricity struck matter, energy explode, He would load and keep releasing atoms by the millions, till the numbers increase, until it was burning. He kept returning Himself to the source. The hotter His thoughts, it gave the center more force. He gave birth to the sun, which would follow His laws, all caused by His mental intercourse. Who is God? If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. Began to explain his craft, the master in the attic. He dealt with measurements, his language was mathematics. His theoretical wisdom of the numerical system, the complete number 9, which means born or existent. He gave birth to all planets, inorganic and organic. So you wouldn't take it for granted, they rotated their own distance around the sun and fully submit to the existence of one. And each one was promised everlasting perfection. If each one keeps spinning in the same direction to the east, and each speak the motion of peace and harmony, and each show devotion to teach the universes to come. The whole world must go according. Oh, your galaxies are mirage, your stars start falling. So stay in your orbit, maintain safe and sound like the planets. Your cycle remains perfectly round. If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. Let's go. Consciousness to consciousness, by knowledge and His wisdom, His response is this: a understanding, which is the best part. He picked the 3rd planet where new forms of life would start. He pursued, show and prove every move in order. Back to the source, He let off His resources in the water. Climb His climax where the climate is at high degrees. Seeds start to breathe deep in the darkest seas. And the plan is to lay in the clays to form land and expand, using the same clays to born man in His own image. Our origin begins in the east. Culture rise to free with the powers of peace. Dealing equality, nature's policy is to be God. Build and destroy positively, born life like a law. And each one was given everlasting perfection. If each one keep living in the same direction, and life was life, and love was love. We went according by the laws of the worlds above. It showed us physically we can reach infinity, but mentally through the century we lost our identity. Life started ending, we got trife and started sinning. Lost touch with the beginning, now cipher stopped spinning, and what was once easy became confused and hard. Which brings us back to the mystic question, who is God? 66 trillion years since his face was shown. When the seventh angel appears, the mystery will be known. Check Revelations and Genesis, St. Luke and John. It even tells us we are gods in the Holy Quran. Wisdom, strength, and beauty, one of the meanings of God. G-O-D, you and me, Goma, R's, Duval. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding, sun, moon, and star. Man, woman, and child, and so is the law. If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. If you can see, if you can solve the mystery, the answer revolves around your history. So carefully, I drop this degree, scientifically and realistically. Bear witness to the law gave birth to all, for Allah was all, and therefore life itself. And the universe gave birth to man. The universe was man, and man was the universe. And the universe was always existed, and existence was life, and life was a law. And the law had no beginning because he is what always was. Rock him Allah. Peace. Now who is God?
Bud Crockett says he won't be denied his heritage, but he won't beg for it either.
It's not all about the money. It's about setting the history record straight about our ancestry and our history and what legacy we intend to leave for our kids.
Since the Black Seminoles were removed, the government has cut off all federal funding to the tribe. That's persuaded some, like Chief Haney, to say they should be allowed back in, but he still says they're not entitled to that $56 million.
Chinese Indians. Time out.
Well, in my belief, I teach each person that the presence of God, the presence of good, whatever you call God, is within you. And when you recognize that presence and call upon it, it makes you whole. It gives you power over whatever comes against you, be it poverty, or sickness of the body, or some illness in your affairs. So it is by means of the God in you that you come in contact with healing and experience healing.
75 years ago, much of Afro-American culture was centered around cotton fields like these. And then, for 5 decades, beginning in 1915, blacks undertook the largest single migration of any ethnic group in our country's history. Chicago became one of the largest recipients in what has become known as the Great Migration. The people, the customs, and the culture of the migrants have had a tremendous impact in shaping the city of Chicago as what we know it today.
The St. Louis Blues has quite a detailed story. Of course, everybody knows that W.C. Handy is a man who did the St. Louis Blues and is responsible for it. But as a matter of fact and record, he did not compose the St. Louis Blues, he compiled it. He had a guitar player who lived here in St. Louis by the name of Guy Williams, and they were lifelong friends. And Guy Williams brought out of Mississippi a little tune known as the Jogo Blues. And from this Mississippi tune, Mr. Handy put into his St. Louis Blues.
It's a spiritual illness. It's not a physical illness. And that's why faith healers can cure cancer better than a doctor can, I think. The surgery helps, I guess, but I know that faith healers don't need that because they work with the mind of the person.
Okay. Yes, and the cause of illness is not really in the body, it's in the mind.
Right.
That is one reason why they're having such difficulty finding a physical cure for cancer, because the cause of cancer, or all illness, is really in the mind of the spirit.
Well, I see the same problems existing here in St. Louis for blacks as exist across this country. primarily they're problems that are based on the racial mentality of the majority of people who live in the area. When I say majority, I speak of the white community and the community with the influence and the power to make the decisions that affect the lives of black people. There seems to be a general attitude in this country among whites now that blacks have made too much progress. So we find ourselves fighting a holding kind of fight where we seem to feel as if we've been victorious if we can just keep them from taking back the rights that we've gained over the past 10 or 12 years.
The seeds of the Great Migration were planted nearly a century ago when Chicago hosted the Columbian Exposition in 1893.
There had been a constant migration, a trickle, ever since the city was formed in the 19th century, early 19th century. Township status, 1833, city status, 1837. But the spark occurred with the Columbian Exposition, a real pull factor for people who wanted to take advantage of the opportunities of a major metropolis.
This migration apparently didn't attract the working class.
Yeah, the working class came very slowly. The problem for the working class was that Chicago's industry was shut off to blacks.
In recent years, Indian tribes across the country have reaped windfall profits, usually from gambling operations, and some, like the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma, from belated government payouts for lands taken hundreds of years ago. But what makes the Seminoles unique is the fact that this tribe, unlike any other, has existed for nearly 3 centuries as a mixture of Indians and blacks, runaway slaves who joined the Indians as warriors in Florida. Together, they fought government troops in some of the bloodiest wars in U.S. history. In the late 1830s, the Seminoles lost their land and were forced to a new Indian home in what is now Oklahoma. Over the years, some of them intermarried, and that blurred the color lines even further. Now, the government is paying the tribe $56 million for those lost Florida lands, and the money is threatening to divide a nation. Talk to Seminole Chief Jerry Haney. He says the black members are no longer welcome by many in the tribe. After 300 years together, the chief says the tribe wants them to either prove they're Indian or get out.
St. Louis is one of the old cities of this country. It is now 208 years old. Goes back to 1764. And I think if we do some digging in the early history of St. Louis, there's a legend that says that St. Louis was founded by 30 men in a boat and a 14-year-old boy by the name of Choteau. They landed on the 15th day of February in 1764.
These 30 men, they were black men?
Well, that's my point. Nobody has told who these men were, and I claim that some of them were black men. Why? Because this was French territory, and out of Haiti, Santo Domingo at that time, there had been a revolution, and many of the people had come into Louisiana, New Orleans, and some came up the river. So the early history of St. Louis is mingled with black people, and it has been sadly neglected and almost forgotten. I would like to claim for St. Louis and New Orleans as the #1 city to study civil rights in America.
Why do you say that?
Well, because we go back so deep into history. And the very beginning of the Great Louisiana Territory Purchase, and St. Louis was the capital of the Louisiana Territory. In 1803, this vast number of states, 18 states later on, but this vast territory was bought from France for $15 million. And St. Louis was the upper capital. And here we had a large number of free black citizens. in New Orleans and in St. Louis. And the treaty that changed Louisiana territory to American territory provided that all citizens thereof should be treated with equality. But when the Americans took over, they did not want to treat the black free citizens. They wanted them to be ousted. And as a matter of fact, the first law they made that all free blacks, and they use the word mulattoes and blacks, shall be driven out of the territory. So the key to our whole civil rights history is the free Negroes who appreciated freedom and did something about it. And the first demonstration in civil rights was right here in St. Louis in 1819, when a small group of whites and the free Negroes demonstrated against the new law of Missouri to drive them out or either reduce them to slaves. Now that is the beginning of your civil rights fight in America. At that time, Chicago was a cow pasture. So the Missouri Compromise has never been correctly taught. Things have been hidden about it that should be told. The Missouri Compromise was to get rid of these free Negroes.
St. Louis has a history also of black mythology. What about the legend of Stagger Lee and the devil?
Stagger Lee is a half mythological character, and he's half man. He was the first bad black man in America. He came along with Jesse James and the Younger Brothers. Stagger Lee was a bad man, and he loved to gamble. And in his gambling, he didn't always win. So one night after a big loss down on Market Street in St. Louis, he went out in the wet night, and he was so downcast that he didn't know what to do. And he got to an old German cemetery, Piker's Cemetery. And as he wandered out there, and his coat was up around his neck, and didn't know what to do, up jumped the devil. And he had a conversation with Stagger Lee. He said, "Stack, what's your trouble?" He said, "I lose all the time. You want to win?" They made a deal. And the deal was that as long as Stack would wear a special brand of Stetson hat, he would always be lucky and he would win. On the hand, Stack was to give his life when he died, put his life in pawn to the devil.
Things went well for Bad Stagger Lee for 10 long years, until the devil got into a man named Billy Lyons and made him steal the lucky Stetson hat. Stagger Lee took a gun and shot him down.
They had a trial here in St. Louis, and they sentenced Stack to 75 years. Sent him up to Jeff City. Now I want to point out two things to you. First thing is, the devil was defeated because Stack shot a black man, killed a black man. If he had killed a white man, he would have been hanged. But he killed a black man, they simply gave him some time.
Well, I'm not reading. I thought the comments were pretty accurate. I think that blacks are a superior gene line. Based upon reproductive survival success, you have to reproduce in order to survive. And blacks have been put under 400 years of slavery, given the worst food, the worst medical care, the worst housing. So that would select out the weaker gene lines. And that's why we would be out of proportionally represented in just about every area we're given an opportunity.
Are you glad? You sound like you're glad he made these comments here.
Now, if whites would like to be superior, they would allow blacks to enslave them for 400 years, and their weaker gene lines would die out. So I think that Jimmy the Greek is unfairly treated by the station that fired him. And I think the other group that probably would have a superior gene line based upon reproductive survival success are Jewish people who've been driven and murdered for years. And I would like to emphasize it has nothing to do in particular with race. It has to do with selecting out a weak gene line or weak family names. Weak not in an absolute sense, but just that the people cannot stand the oppression.
Ishmael, how do you feel?
Well, hold on, I like another way. And that's that there were 1 million black boys last year that wanted to play in the NBA. Of that 1 million, only 400,000 will even make it to play high school ball. Of that 400,000, only 4,000 will be able to make it to play college ball. Of that 4,000, only 35 will make it to the NBA. Of that 35, only 7 start. And the average life in the NBA is 4 years. So the real problem is we have 1 million brothers looking for 7 full-time jobs that last 4 years. And yet last year we had 100,000 jobs available to be a computer programmer, engineer, or doctor, and only 1,000 brothers qualified. So our appeal to black males is to realize the odds. That you do most will be that you do best. I mean, we were the first doctor, not Hippocrates, Imhotep. So we have the ability either in math or science or music and sports. But that you do most will be that you do best. If you play basketball from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you'll be a very good basketball player. If you went home and went to the library, you'd be a very good scholar. We need more black male role models that will encourage our youth in math and science.
Ishmael, how are you reacting to the...
Yeah, I was offended by the remarks, but...
you were what? Offended?
I was offended by the remarks, but I hear those kind of remarks all day, every day. And I think that...
so he said what you think a lot of folks are thinking anyhow, but they're not saying it.
Before I came over here, I was tuned into another channel, fortunately.
That's okay, Ishmael.
And I think the interviewer was trying to congratulate Arthur Mitchell of the Harlem Dance Group. And he tried to congratulate him by saying that, well, these people are not into superfly bebop. They're into things that are more, forms that are more elegant and sophisticated. I can't think of any music form that's more sophisticated and elegant than bebop. So I took that as a slur against Afro-American music. So I think what happens is that we run the risk of singling out people like Nick the Greek and Al Campanet, is that the way you pronounce his name? Yeah, who have working class styles, and we let these elitists, people in culture and education, get away. Do you understand what I mean? So it seems to be a double standard. People who have a working class background, like those two guys, get blasted. But people in the industry I work in the university and culture, get away. They make remarks like that all the time.
At the turn of the century, 2/3 of the country's Afro-Americans lived in the rural South. Few blacks owned their own land. Most worked under some form of the sharecropping system, where landlords would front supplies and living expenses in return for a portion of the crops at harvest time. For most sharecroppers, like Erling Lindsay's father in Fitchwood, Alabama, their crops never seemed to cover expenses.
And didn't care what he made, he never got out of debt. He always owed something at the end of the year.
Cotton was an important crop throughout the South. Its 7-month growing season culminated in the scorching months of August and September.
Have you ever had to work in the field from sunup to sundown, and you see a spot in a cloud in the sky and pray that it rains so you can get some rest? My aspiration was, regardless of what it took, that I didn't have to chop cotton, pick cotton, harvest corn, or anything else anymore. I was willing to take that chance. And I think that's what I was just tired.
Cotton plants grow about waist high. Picking cotton by hand requires bending over or crawling on hands and knees. The sacks each picker carried for the collected cotton often weighed as much as 200 pounds by the end of the day.
I'd get on my knees sometime and pick, crawl on your knees. You had knee pads on. Crawl on your knees. I'd catch 2 rows.
During the early decades of this century, most sharecroppers lived on the land they farmed. Few could afford to travel, which limited their communication with the rest of the world.
When you was used to such work as that, it was great. You knew no better.
About 70 miles south of Memphis, Clarksdale, Mississippi sits right in the heart of the Mississippi Delta. The rich topsoil and warm climate of this area have always been well suited for growing cotton. Like the rest of the South, Clarksdale segregated its black and white citizens through the early 70s. Like most towns in the Mississippi Delta and throughout the South, blatant signs of segregation disappeared around Clarksdale when federal law mandated it some 2 decades ago. For the first half of this century, separate but equal was the official law, but each town devised their own interpretation. When do you recall that you were first aware that racism existed?
The first time, I believe, was when my father bought some hunting dogs, because that was the part of the way that we ate and we lived from him hunting. And he bought some hunting dogs, and these white folks wanted to buy his dogs. And he wouldn't sell them his dogs, and they come along and poison the dogs. And I think that just had a great impact on me as to how far white folks would go to keep control over black folks' lives.
How much did segregation in the South impact your life?
We had separate schools, no school bus. We had to walk to 6 miles where the white school bus picked the kids up and sometimes chase us off the road. We could not walk through the middle of the town to go up on the hill, what they call Baptist Hill, to go to Hale County Training School. We had to walk in the back where they didn't even have sidewalks or nothing. And can you imagine walking in that red mud? Going up, had to go up the back of town in order to go to Baptist Hill, and then we had to walk those 6 miles back home. And I think that's when you really felt and knew the difference. And if you went into a store somewhere, you try to make a telephone call, and unless you said yes ma'am and no ma'am, they would not wait on you.
During the years between World War I and World War II, talk about a better life began to trickle through the South. The Promised Land up north offered more opportunity than they had in the South.
You know, it occurs to me that the best way you hurt rich people is by turning them into poor people.
When the gene was first discovered, it was believed that it was the last thing that could be learned about the transmission of those things that we inherit. But Watson and Crick later learned by a method of X-ray diffraction that the gene is made of a material known as DNA, which is also deoxyribonucleic acid.
David Robertson has tried a number of times to register to vote in Mississippi.
I can't see why any people would be insulted by someone saying they're superior. As I read the article...
Yeah, but the Reverend Jesse Jackson, Huey, has said he should have been fired by CBS. Dr. Harry Edwards... Huey, hold on.
I'm talking about what Huey Newton says right now. Jimmy the Greek also said if blacks are given the opportunity in management in other areas, they will probably be superior there, too. And so I can't see where anyone would find fault with him other than the majority group who are afraid of blacks because of our superiority.
You said okay.
Oh, yeah, I said okay because it's true. It's easy for us to lash out at this person, but he meant that. You know,
that was his programming, it wasn't?
Right. He meant exactly what he said. That was very important to him. So we have to look at that and realize that this is how people are thinking.
How do we change people's thinking?
I don't want to change it. In other words, if you put blacks under the most vicious, the most savage oppression throughout the start of the enslaving period, what gene line would be left other than a very strong gene line? I think it's ridiculous to think that, in a biological sense, that weak gene lines would not be wiped out after giving the worst food, the worst medical care, and so forth. I think what people really want to do is read into Jimmy the Greek's statement to say that, well, blacks are only good at athletics, and blacks can't be good at quarterbacks or at management. But he did not say that. I think you're programmed to read into it black inferiority, because that's what you're used to seeing. And I don't know what his intentions were either.
You need someone who's aware of this to make you aware of it.
Right.
The Bible says, how can they be saved except they hear the preacher? In other words, somebody has to make you aware that God is in you. And I see it happen all the time to people who say, I didn't know God was in me. I see drug addicts who come to our services, and at every service we tell people, shake hands and say, the presence of God in me blesses the presence of God in you, beloved child of God. Drug addicts go cold turkey and they say, nobody ever called me a beloved child of God. Nobody ever told me God was in me, but when you told me that, something clicked inside of me and I had the power to overcome drugs on the spot.
Okay.
This section of the Constitution deals with local, special, and private bills rather than general laws, and how these laws or bills may be passed or rejected by the legislature. In each house, there is a permanent committee. The 7 representatives serve to make up the House Committee, and 5 senators serve to make up the Senate Committee. No local or private bill shall be passed by either house until it shall have been referred to said committee thereof. This simply means that a bill cannot be passed in the House unless it has been referred to the committee of this House. And the same goes for a bill being passed in the Senate. It cannot be passed unless it has gone before the Senate committee.
During World War II, an event took place in a Mississippi cotton field that would trigger the second and largest wave of black migration. We'll explore these changes in the cotton culture and their effect on Chicago when we return. On October the 2nd, 1944, in this field just outside Clarksdale, Mississippi, a few thousand people gathered for an event that would dramatically impact Chicago, 600 miles to the north. The unveiling of the mechanical cotton picker would eventually idle thousands of black workers and accelerate their exodus to Chicago. In the early 1940s, 2 brothers owned and managed a 4,000-acre plantation 2 miles south of Clarksdale, Mississippi. One of those brothers, Howell Hobson, had been working with the Chicago-based International Harvester Company for 15 years, developing and testing various designs for a machine that could pick cotton. Roosevelt Hill, who was born and raised on the Hobson farm, drove many of the early prototypes.
The first picker would go down through the field. It didn't pick as good as you would take a stick just knocking it out. But on in terms that they would write up their report, what they need to improvement, go back this fall, come back the next fall with something else.
Once perfected, the cost of picking cotton dropped from $42 per bale for hand picking to around $5 per bale with a mechanical cotton picker. Though this mechanized farming didn't become universal until the 1950s, for those blacks who relied on cotton for a living, the handwriting was on the wall. Blues musician Johnny Billington grew up in rural Mississippi and earned extra income working the cotton fields.
Yeah, it was a lot of people that was talking about it, although I was real young, but they realized that if it did work, then it would eliminate a whole lot of jobs for people in the South.
You just have to stop being racist by first encountering your racism and seeing first that you should be a little afraid of a people that you've attempted to commit genocide against. Not only then, but now.
Well, I went up on the 21st of June, and I filled out an application, and Mr. Lynn didn't look at it, so he just told me that to look for it in the paper, and I asked him to look for what in the paper. He said that my name would appear in it, that I had applied an application, put in for an application, that's all. And I noticed that I kept asking him questions. I thought maybe he'd get up so he could look at it. And I asked him, was it anything that he could do to tell me whether or not I passed it today? He told me no, that they had changed it in the last section of legislation that they had lately. And he couldn't tell within 30 days, and he didn't move from his desk.
Why do you want to vote?
Well, I feel that a good citizen should vote, and maybe we could get more, and I'm sure that we could get more from our money that we pay for taxes, like better roads and possibly street lighting, our street lighting in our neighborhood. And good too. Perhaps our police protection would be different. Maybe we could get some colored polices down here, and you know, things like that.
Well, you know, I turned out to this game in 1967. Big Red, Ellen Brooks, Arthur Westbrown chose me in the House of Newville. That was A.D.L. Morticia's barbershop. Arthur West, Ryan Root, Odell Phillips, Ronald Allen, George McKay, Cass, Shogi, Ike Jr., Ike Sr., Charles Taylor, James Beasley, John and Luke Wade. It's a host of them. It was all great players. Max, some of them had extraordinary credentials. And at one time or another, all of them was on top in this Bay Area. You see, the dilemma in that whole situation about who was the best is, if you was on top of your game, at one time all of them was the best. At one time I was the best. So when you're at the top of your game and you're handling it right and your folks is right and everybody's in line and you're just counting it, you having so much money that you can't count it, you gotta weigh it, then at that particular moment in time, you are the best. They don't, when they get up and look in the mirror in the morning, I don't think they see their real potential. Because if they seen their real potential, they wouldn't think that they need to get on film and clown motherfuckers that have been pimping for 30 years. You see them be in the game, get up, get a nice whip, get the big rims, get the 24s, get the platinum chain, and then 3 years later you see them, some of them on drugs, some of them working in McDonald's and Burger King. Here I am, 55 years old, and I'm still in the game. They don't know what real progress is. They think progress is a platinum chain and a nice whip with some 24s on. And speakers under this hood where you can hear it 9 blocks away. That's not. When you buy houses and businesses and you can eat from your pimping 20, 30, 40 years later, then you done some real pimping.
There's no question that there's a direct relationship between images and self-esteem. And it goes all the way back to Tarzan, to Superman, to Rambo, to Batman, to even painting the image of Jesus Christ as white. I mean, you can't separate racism from anything. So it's not unlikely then that you have Pope Julius commissioning Michelangelo in 1505 to paint Jesus Christ white. Images control self-esteem. Abraham Lincoln found out very early, when you have 300 slaves on a plantation and one master, it takes a lot of work. Why don't you let them go? But don't teach them who they are. Control their history. Control their images. Then you won't have to watch them. Whoever controls the mind will also control the body.
Negro that applies for registration is required to fill out a form. And this has to be filled out accurately. And in this form, he indicates whether or not he can handle the English language. If there are any errors in it, any errors in spelling, any uncrossed T's or undotted I's, that alone may be sufficient to make it possible for the registrar to reject him. Then the registrar is required by Mississippi law to ask the prospective registrant to interpret one or more sections of the Mississippi Constitution. I think there are 285 sections to the Mississippi Constitution. And the registrar is the sole determiner as to whether or not this interpretation is adequate. The law in Mississippi prevents the registrar from indicating to the unsuccessful registrant the reason for the failure. So that if the applicant fails, all the information he gets is that he fails. And the facts are, of course, that very well qualified persons, school teachers, doctors, lawyers, men and women with doctor's degrees from respectable American universities that are good citizens, would be regarded good citizens elsewhere, fail and are not permitted to register. Then beyond this, it takes a good deal of courage in Mississippi to get yourself ready to apply in the first place. Because the general tenor in many sections of the state is to enforce economic reprisals. People lose their jobs. They happen to operate a store, they lose their business. All sorts of gimmicks are resorted to affect their economic security. And then in some cases, of course, there is a fear of physical violence. There isn't any question, but in recent months and weeks and days, persons that have been active in trying to get qualified Negroes to register or in the desire to register themselves have met with physical violence.
Scores of other blacks in Clarksdale and around the Mississippi Delta, Ruby Haynes contemplated a move north during the 40s.
A lot of friends of mine I know started leaving here in 39, 38, 39, 40, 41, 43. People would just start leaving, you know. So it'd taken me a long time to make up my mind to go there.
Why did you want to move to Chicago?
I think when they started getting cotton pickers in for the plantation, because most of the people, that's how they would make their living. Most of the way to go pick cotton and chop cotton. But when they started getting those machines in, it cut out all the people. They didn't have no kind of work to do. People that wasn't able to work in a laundry or at a white person house or something like that, that was just the way they lived. And they just left to go find better jobs.
Education in the rural South often meant one room with a part-time teacher and a school schedule that revolved around farming chores. As a young child, Benny Mae Tillman showed signs of being an exceptional student, but her parents didn't feel their school in rural Arkansas could provide the challenge she needed.
I remember my schooling because just before I left, I had received this double from 3rd to 4th grade. And that's one of the things that influenced my father and mother to want to come to Chicago, because my teachers had told them that I had possibilities and they wanted to give me the best opportunity possible. And some of their friends had come north and told them that it was a great place to be.
In addition to the educational opportunities in the North, Benny Mae Tillman's father was able to find a better job to support their 9 children. Chicago's black population grew from 2% of the total in 1910 to over 50% of the entire city's population today. The largest influx of blacks into Chicago occurred after World War II.
Within one of the books that I've written, Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, is what happens early on. And one of our concerns is we have studies that document that black boys may be the best students in the country up until 4th grade. So the question is, what happens to black boys in the intermediate and upper grades to begin to create the kind of image that you're talking about when they become 18 years and older? I sincerely believe that only men can make boys men. Now, don't misquote me. I did not say that a single female parent could not rear or educate her child, but she need not do that by herself. Because I understand we're on television time, it's time to make the point very clear. Where are black boys going to see black men? If you look at the home, 38% of all black children live in a single-run household. In terms of school, 83% of all elementary school teachers are women. 95% of all teacher aides are women. When you look at on television, you'd be hard-pressed to name 5 positive black men on television outside the news, especially if I excluded Bill Cosby. And then, unfortunately, many young people, men don't go to church. So the last place is the streets, and that's the problem. The streets do a very poor job making black men. So the real problem is black boys have a difficult time seeing strong black male role models, which is why these kind of shows are very important.
To look at the overall picture at the school where I worked, which is Rowan High School, we have some 27 teachers there that of the 27, some 10 or 11 of them hold master's degrees, and most of them hold their master's degrees from Eastern or Midwestern universities, and that out of this number, we have about 5 or 6 of them voting, which is a very, very small percentage. The civics in government is taught at Rowan High School, and also you have voteless people who are teaching these courses. So this question we asked ourselves, how can we be qualified to teach, but yet we are not qualified to vote?
first of all, you don't really charge. People give you because they want you to have. Now, I haven't received a dime for the 25 people that I prayed for. And I will give the formula that I use over there if that'll make her feel better about the money, because money is not something that we solicit. But people are so happy to hear the good news till they will give you money. And you shouldn't refuse it if they want to give it, because that's part of the whole prosperity thing.
I have concerns about that. I respect his ability to use his talent, but there are other ways. I mean, images are very important. And even in his last movie, where he even used a plug about Bill Cosby said, you know, can you make things funny without using four-letter words and so forth and so on. It's as if Eddie Murphy said he understood it, but he went right back to using four-letter words throughout his entire show. So we have to clean that up.
How about it?
In this case that the Justice Department filed against Mr. Lind, there were a number of Negroes who had master's degrees from colleges, who were teaching in the Hattiesburg public school system, who had attempted on numerous occasions to register and were told by Mr. Lind that they were not qualified. Do you think it's possible for a man with a master's degree who is teaching in your own public schools here not to be qualified to vote?
You have made a statement of fact, which is an assumption of fact. I don't know that that is a true statement of fact. I have all the confidence in the world in integrity and decency and good citizenship of Theron Lind. And these charges that are made against him, I personally do not believe.
I've checked and I've found that at Rowan High School, the Negro high school here in Hattiesburg, there are some 28 teachers. Of those 28, there are some 10 or 11 who have master's degrees or higher degrees, most of them from northern and midwestern universities. Yet of all of these teachers at Rowan High School, there are only 4 currently who are registered, even though many more than that have tried to register. How would you account for that?
Well, you are making a statement of fact that I don't know is true, and I don't affirm it. But assuming that it is true, then I would like to point out that there are many factors that go into making up what is a qualified elector other than simple education, simple degree from some university. Among those factors are, I believe, under our Constitution, that a man must have never been convicted of bribery, theft, arson, obtaining money or goods on a false pretense, perjury, forgery, embezzlement, or bigamy. He must have paid his poll taxes that were required of him. And he must be of good moral character.
Wouldn't you assume that one must have all of those things to be a qualified teacher of young Negro students in a high school as well?
Well, you know, Jesus Christ selected 12 disciples and got a rotten apple out of 12. How could you expect a school board to select 28 free from being rotten?
Since I've been in Hattiesburg, I have heard white people say that the literacy tests and all of these other qualifications for registration are merely means to keep Negroes from voting, and that personally they did not want any Negroes to vote.
I don't want the Negro as I have known him and contacted him during my lifetime as a class to control the making of a law that controls me, to control the government under which I live.
Would you feel better then if there were some perfectly legal means of keeping all Negroes off the rolls?
I'd feel better, and I think this country would be better off. if all Negroes were removed from it, because I think it is a potential source of racial strife.
The pull factor was the factor of economic opportunity. There was also an accompanying push factor. People were being killed and beaten and always intimidated in the South. In addition, those who were very assertive had to watch what they said in the South, were denied the right to vote, had no freedom of opportunity in regard to education for their children or themselves. So that push factor added to that particular factor of pull, you know, economic opportunities, really explains why so many came and why so many stayed.
Without knowledge of the opportunities that existed in Chicago, the migration would have never happened. We'll look at how Southern blacks learned about the Promised Land when we return. Remnants of the old sharecroppers' quarters can still be found throughout the South. Often families of 10 or more lived in crowded one-room cabins like these. No wonder then that when word filtered down about a better life in Chicago, it opened up the floodgates of migration to the Promised Land on the shores of Lake Michigan. Prior to World War I, European immigrants made up the labor force for Chicago industry. Many of these factory workers went to war in 1914, leaving a void in the factories. Industrialists looked south for a new source of unskilled labor.
For a very short period, the U.S. government was in the South encouraging blacks to come north to work to fill these slots in industry, meat packing, steel, what have you, that were open and necessary to the war effort, providing war material to the warring allies. Big companies went south. Sometimes they even took tickets with them. Sometimes they took railroad cars, and brought workers back with them.
During the war, some companies sent professional labor agents into the South to recruit workers for the factories.
I'd like to reinforce that America spends $2,300 on Head Start. To reinforce your point, they spend $20,000 to $38,000 on prison. So I believe we need to raise the right questions. How long do you stay in Head Start? Year? 2 years at the most? How long do you stay in prison? The rest of your life? Question number one. Question number two, which one works? A longitudinal study documents that Head Start works. But in terms of prison, 85% of inmates to get released go right back in. So as Jesse Jackson says, we have two choices, middle-class white America. You can either send me to Penn State or the state pen.
Carlton.
I don't expect institutions in America to project positive black male images. Black male images are created through revolution, through fighting to change the kind of oppressive conditions that have existed here and that exist. And the positive images that we all can be very proud of are movers such as Dr. Martin Luther King, and historically Nathan Private Turner, Denmark Vesey.
What about the Black Panthers, Huey?
The Black Panther Party, notwithstanding.
Wasn't that a great boost to the black men in this country?
Well, we think so. And of course, we were wiped out systematically. There were about 1 million pages of information compiled upon me alone. I don't know how many millions of illegal I don't know how many illegal break-ins, but I know I suffered at least 20 or 30 illegal break-ins. There were FBI documents that falsified bank records sent around, and the bank records were then sent around to our supporters. There were character assassinations.
Edward J. Curry talked to reporter William Peters about the right to vote.
I have seen some of our Negro citizens that I was real proud of because of their educational attainments, their attainments in every field. And I think those of that kind that I know myself should be permitted to qualify for voting and should be permitted to vote.
Do you think there's a fear on the part of many white people in Mississippi of Negroes voting in large groups?
No, sir, I wouldn't describe it as being fear. They simply don't want them to vote. I think it's a carryover, in my best judgment, from the time of the Civil War, the war between the states. You remember we had a condition of slavery in America. We had masters and slaves, and a great many people through the generations don't realize that that status has ever been terminated. They still look upon the white man as being the master and the negro the slave. And a great many of our people have never been able, and I don't think ever will, during their natural life, be able to overcome that impression that they got from the era when there was that status of master and slave.
What are you hoping that the black Seminoles will do now? Are you hoping they will just pack up and go away?
I would hope so.
So if they're black and they can't prove that they have Indian blood, go away.
Basically, that's what we're saying.
The Chicago Defender also played a major role in spreading the word about Chicago's virtues. Robert Abbott, the paper's founder and owner, migrated to Chicago from Savannah, Georgia during the Columbian Exposition in the 1890s. He founded the Defender in 1905, and it reflected his deep concern for injustices toward Afro-Americans in the North and South.
The Chicago Defender had a platform, a nine-point platform at its inception, and one of those was that race prejudice must be destroyed in the United States of America. So in that process, racial discrimination for the disenfranchised, if you will, was rampant in the South and not so much in the North in those times. So Mr. Abbott used the Chicago Defender. The Chicago Defender is known as a beacon. In that process, we were able to have our paper address those issues of the disenfranchised that were not only in the South, but also in the North, and to tell them they could come to Chicago relative to for less racial discrimination and better employment opportunities.
Attempts to change the slave image, he will scare white people. So the Black Panther Party, I thank you. When you said that we scared people, that means that we were creating a positive black image for ourselves.
Now the Bible says our God is a consuming fire. So this healing energy takes the form of heat in me. Some people say theirs is cool, but mine is heat.
With the Defender's militant stance, constant exposure of injustices, and sensationalism, Southern whites often confiscated or banned the paper.
That is what the European Americans in the South did not want the people, the African Americans in the South, to read. So what happened? We can again say it was almost against the law, because if you were caught reading the Chicago Defender, especially being African American in the South, something very serious could happen to you, even as much as losing your life.
The Defender's rapid increase in circulation paralleled the beginning of the migration. It escalated from a circulation of 33,000 in 1916 to 130,000 3 years later. By 1919, the Defender shipped to over 1,500 locations throughout the South. Many towns outlawed the paper, so it was often smuggled in.
If you lived in Chicago and you had relatives or friends in the southern states, you would mail the Chicago Defender to your friends in the South, but you wouldn't mail the Chicago Defender. You would take another metropolitan newspaper and weave the Chicago Defender throughout it, and then mail that paper to the South.
By the late 40s and early 50s, Chicago needed no further promotion. 5 million blacks migrated from the South to northern cities in the 3 decades following World War II. Chicago's black population grew so fast, many referred to the South Side as the black capital of the United States.
The migration is phenomenal also because the blacks who came here sometimes came as parts of towns. Maybe a whole church picked up, maybe half the town picked up. And many times, half the town would pick up, these are small towns, would pick up at night and flee down the railroad tracks to catch the train 20 miles beyond the town so they could get out of town, because there were policemen at work to keep blacks from leaving certain parts of the South.
Next up, the journey north to Chicago.
We were accustomed to speaking to people on the streets.
we were accustomed to various families concerned about other families. When we got here, we found out that you lived in your, what they call flats at that time, and they lived in theirs, and never the twain shall meet.
Racism there is out in the open. Racism here was not out in the open, but it was still racism.
My vision was for a more beautiful city. I was disappointed it wasn't as beautiful as the picture was painted. But I wasn't disappointed because opportunities was here.
Migrants often expected more than Chicago could deliver. If the new arrivals didn't have family or friends to help them make the transition, the city offered little assistance.
What kind of assistance could a black migrant expect here?
I think that we accomplished some of the goals that we set out for. Of course, that blacks are not free in the United States to this very day, so we have not accomplished freedom. But I hope that we laid down a history, that we contributed to the continuing struggle for freedom.
A Johnson Creek man is charged with human trafficking, and prosecutors say he got a college student hooked on drugs and, as Bill Miston explains, pimped her out for sex.
On Wednesday, Milwaukee County prosecutors charged 22-year-old Briar Meyer with human trafficking. The victim told investigators she was, quote, his puppet, withholding crack cocaine to get her to do what he wanted. In the fall of 2024, court filings say a woman met a then 20-year-old Briar Meyer on Snapchat. That October, he asked her to pick him up from the rave. The two then went back to her dorm on the UWM campus. That's where, according to court filings, prosecutors say the woman thought she was taking ecstasy, but later learned it was crack cocaine. Filings say the woman became addicted and spent $300 every week buying drugs from Meyer. The woman says Meyer then took her phone and began making random contact with males, asking if they wanted to participate in commercial sex acts, trafficking the woman for several months, according to prosecutors, collecting thousands of dollars in the process. The woman said she was his puppet, withholding drugs from her to get her to do what he wanted, as well as threats of violence. Filings say when she tried to distance herself from him, he would call and demand money and threaten to come to her dorm, and admits to being terrified of Meyer. A warrant is out for Meyer's arrest. It's unclear if he has an attorney. Department of Corrections records show that Meyer has criminal convictions for criminal damage to property, drug possession, and disorderly conduct. In Milwaukee, Bill Miston, Fox 6 News.
I'm fed up with the Jim Crow laws. People who are cruel and afraid, who lynch and run, who are scared of me and me of them. I pick up my life and take it away on a one-way ticket. Gone up north, gone out west, gone. The haunting verse of American poet Langston Hughes sums up the exasperation felt by many Southern blacks. Once they decided to leave, rail travel was their primary means of escape. Today, the original station is boarded up, and the tracks that connected New Orleans lay dormant. But the memories of those train rides still live on.
We didn't have any comfortable means of sleeping on the train, so we sat up. It must have taken a couple of days to get here.
I think I paid $11. And it was all right until, black people then would have a certain coach to ride.
Had to make our sandwich and bring them with us. You couldn't go to the dining area. That was but I took that with a grain of salt. I never let it faze me.
The main Illinois Central rail line ran from New Orleans to Chicago. Along that route, railroad lines from Georgia and Alabama joined the IC tracks to Chicago. For the entire duration of this migration, which tapered off in the mid-60s, blacks and whites rode the trains north in separate railroad cars. Earlene Lindsay made her first trip to Chicago in 1943.
You only could ride the train if seats was available, because soldiers would ride in the trains then. And sometimes they would let you get on the train, but you would have to sit on your luggage or sit somewhere. And they would tell you, now when we get to Kentucky, pull down your shades. Because you see, they had black coaches and white coaches. And sometime if you rode with the soldiers sitting on those suitcases just to get on the train, it might have been a mixed audience. You know, it might have been black and white. And people would throw bricks through the train window. And that was the reason to pull down the shades so they couldn't see who was in what caboose on the train.
Once the train reached Cairo, Illinois, segregation officially ended. But few changed railroad cars for the remainder of the trip to Chicago.
Weren't you bothered by the fact that even though you were in the North, you still had to take a segregated train from Chicago?
No, because you know why? I had just come out of a segregated living. And it don't bother you as much. And plus, I guess my father, when he talked about the man and the monkey on his back, had just kind of prepared us that regardless of where we go, because of the color of our skin, we would always be classified as different.
I read Frederick Douglass and all of the fellows from the olden times, and I knew what segregation meant. And it didn't faze me, because I was looking beyond segregation. I could do more things in Chicago than I could do in Memphis. And I lived in Memphis under strict segregation law. And I felt that I could work with the situation.
The vast majority of blacks migrating from the South arrived in Chicago by train, and the end of the Illinois Central line stood right here at 12th and Michigan. The Illinois Central Station was the Black Ellis Island until it was demolished in 1974.
Many times they found just what they expected to find. They found friendly relatives ready to greet them in jobs. And the jobs were very demanding, but the jobs were well-paying for persons who had been underpaid working in the fields of the South or in small southern towns. They found educational opportunities. The opportunities they thought existed were here. And perhaps the biggest disappointment might have been in the area of housing, where African Americans found themselves squeezed into a housing situation that didn't promise anything better for them and their children.
We'll examine this budding black metropolis when we return.
That's why some people are spotted out, you could say, to do certain things that others aren't, because the light it draws people.
Betty Mae Tillman's parents and 9 children arrived in Chicago near the end of the 1920s. They enrolled in an educational system far superior to the one they left in Arkansas.
My parents were happy that we were able to go to school and get the education. That was the main focus, is to this is what my father said, that they were coming here so that he could educate his children.
You moved from a semi-rural to an urban environment. Did you have problems adjusting?
We did have adjustments to make. We were not accustomed to so many people. We were not accustomed to people not being friendly. It was a different kind of way of living.
The Southern carryover of focusing life around the family and the church was retained. So to that extent, the cultural shock wasn't as great because people had something to carry them through. But replacing the alarm clock, or rather replacing the rooster with the alarm clock, and the streetcar taking the place of walking, this is a major change in the lives of many people.
Beginning with the first wave of migration during World War I, most blacks moved north, seeking better economic opportunities. For the large unskilled labor force from the South, Chicago offered plenty of work.
When 1 or 2 went up there, and they going to apply for a job somewhere, and they said, where you're from or where you're home? Mississippi. You had that job. I didn't care how long the sky been. I said, no, Mississippi guy didn't know nothing but work. And he turned out more production than the guy was already been up there.
Curtis Coleman moved his wife and young family to Chicago in 1944, right at the beginning of the second great migrational wave. What led you to move to Chicago, Mr. Coleman?
The opportunity to better my life for myself and my family.
Were those expectations fulfilled?
It was really fulfilled. See, I worked with my hands, and I never was afraid of work. I was a chef or cook, but I wasn't too good to wash dishes or to mop the floor.
As the entire labor force returned from the Second World War, competition for jobs increased, but there were still plenty of openings for blacks who were migrating in record numbers. Ruby Haynes came to Chicago in 1946 to stay with her aunt.
I remember one time I got hired on 3 different jobs in one day. Because I went to work that morning, if I didn't like it, I went to work at a laundry. And I didn't like that pressing, running those presses that day. I went on down the streets and got hired at another place.
From the onset of the migrational surge in 1915, Chicago's black community went into a period of evolution that lasted 5 decades.
A new book, Writing is Fighting. Plug.
That's okay.
Outlined some of my reservations about the film. I thought it was a contradiction for the writer and the industry behind the writer. This was a collective decision. It wasn't her decision alone. They had a meeting, these feminists. I thought it was a contradiction for them to take a film about black male chauvinism to the biggest male chauvinist in Hollywood. You wouldn't take a film about the Martin Luther King to Bull Connor and ask him to do it, okay? For people who say racism and sexism are the same, I couldn't imagine that happening. So this movie was taken to Steven Spielberg, who's been criticized by Asian American organizations, Irish American organizations for his depiction of Irish and Asians in some films. And I understand a new film, which my wife and daughter saw yesterday, is anti-Japanese. So they took this product to him, and the goal apparently was to make money. Do you understand? Now we have a color.
So it distorted Alice's image from her book?
Well, that's up to her. I mean, she was a consultant on the film. She was on the studio working on the film until the...
I fished in these woods. I hunted in these woods. I went to stomp dances just like the regular Seminoles did. And I never knew I was any different for a long time.
What a lot of blacks found, though, was that they didn't like what the union was selling and didn't quite believe in this policy of equality that some union leaders said was supposed to exist. Because some unions would still enlist blacks and have separate punch bowls at union functions. On the other hand, there were instances where there was one punch bowl and an outstretched hand from unions.
By the spring of 1919, racial tensions escalated into incidents of actual violence. In late July, a black teenager was murdered when he fell asleep on his raft and floated too close to a white beach on the south side. Full-scale riots ensued, injuring over 500 Chicagoans and killing 23 blacks and 15 whites.
So as people can see it, and it's light, anybody can walk in light. I walk in light by reading the Word every day, the Bible.
I mean, she has a right to write what she wants to, and Hollywood has a right to I mean, this is Martin Luther King Day. We're for freedom. I'm not for censorship. They have a right to do what they want. I'm just pointing out the contradictions in the feminist ideology. And now we have another Color Purple clone coming up where they're going to do a lot of these because they made a lot of money, made over $100 million. So, and I understand from Fortune 500 that Steven Spielberg's almost a billionaire. So, you know, we're like a natural resource. That's one thing black males are. They take our stuff and make a lot of money out of it. Yeah, we should hire ourselves up like the coal industry or something. But anyway, there's a new film coming out which is going to be done by the producers of Rocky. Same thing, a feminist took a product about black male chauvinism and took it to a man who produced a misogynistic movie, Rocky. And the movie Rocky made millions of dollars exploiting the public's fear of black males. You know, you had the scene where Mr. T hit on the man's wife, and that kind of thrilled everybody when he got knocked out or beaten or was conquered by Rocky. So I think one thing about black sexism is it's big business. And that may be the reason that it'll be hard to eradicate it.
So in other words, you're saying that they're making a big business on the misery of black men.
Oh yeah, I mean,
rather than uplifting them.
Sure. What? And the ironic thing is these people are liberals. You know, the people who participated in this wasn't given us by the right wing. It was given us by liberals in Hollywood were the ones who produced this, and they produced.
For blacks and whites involved in that confrontation, the scars may never heal. For the migrants who came later in the 40s and 50s, racism became more covert.
We still could not go across Cottage Grove. You was off limits, and I worked at the University of Chicago at 5959 Kimbark, and that was during the time when the Navy was around out there. And we used to have to wear badges, and people think this is a lie, but this is the truth. to show why we was in that area at a certain time of night. And that was the impact of part of that racism when it surfaced, that you have a dividing line that's so close.
Well, in the South, racism was different. You knew the law. They told you the truth. Chicago, they won't tell you the truth. That's the only difference.
By the late 1950s, the expanding black community created serious overcrowding. Coupled with the flawed federal welfare system, portions of the Promised Land had become a ghetto. In the mid-60s, the federal government launched a war on poverty, aimed at cities like Chicago, who were suffering some of the ill effects of the migration.
I tell you what, dude is really gangster because it was a little problem getting on the plane, and like between Mad Links, Hakeem Taylor, and Gucci Man, we got everybody on that motherfucker, man. So big shouts out to Air Train for trying to shut it down. Could not happen though. All right, so Gucci Man, let's just talk serious business, man. There's a lot going on with you right now.
Hell yeah, dog. She got her crazy.
All right, so all right, just on Rap City not that long ago, and a lot of cats in the streets, especially, was like, whoa, like everybody just kind of like dropped what they was doing and listened at the same time because you had some things to talk about. Young Jeezy, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about that for a second. Let's reiterate for those that didn't catch that Rap City episode, man. What's going on with you and Jeezy?
I don't fuck with a nigga, he a pussy.
All right. So what's got you feeling that way, man?
Niggas just be doing little bitch ass shit, you know what I'm saying? Shit a bitch would do, you know what I mean? Like a little bitch.
All right. So where's all that coming from? Because, I mean, y'all had the song together. It seemed like the relationship was going along pretty all right. You know, y'all both repping the A.
I thought it was a real nigga, man, but, you know, nigga carbon copy, man. And I'm Oreo.
All right.
Nigga tried to get my song on his album, and then after he couldn't do it, you know what I mean? Just bitch came out of it.
So what he started doing exactly?
You know, just making diss records. Going on the radio saying little shit. You know what I'm saying? Popping shit to niggas and shit.
Was he doing that in Atlanta or in markets that you might not have been in?
He was going to markets I ain't been in yet and do a show before I get there and tell them don't buy my record when it come out.
You actually heard that cats was saying, like, don't buy Gucci album?
I seen it on videotape. So that what made me just flip out like this.
Okay. So now, when was the first time you heard a diss record from Jeezy?
I was doing a show in like in Tampa, Florida, and while I was riding out, we heard it on the radio.
Right. So, like, did that feel like it kind of came out of nowhere? Like, yo, what the fuck is going on?
No, actually, I anticipated the shit, you know what I'm saying? But still, I got, you know what I mean? I got to handle it.
Okay. So, how's Gucci Man handling the situation right now?
Everything's cool, man. You know what I'm saying? I've been beefing with niggas in the hood all my life, you know what I'm saying? But it's like one of the weakest niggas I ever beef with. So, it really ain't no problem.
Well, all right, so you got some diss records coming out, or like, you know, what's going on with Gucci Man?
You know what I'm saying? I got the album in stores now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I want everybody to go support me. It's real hot. Got a lot of talented producers on there. You know what I mean? A lot of party tracks, a lot of street shit on there. You know what I'm saying? As far as just dissing them, you know what I mean? I got a couple songs. You know what I mean? I got a couple disses on the album.
On the album, okay.
So everybody go check it out down here. You know what I'm saying? What I got to say.
All right. Now, just recently, I mean, you were involved in a very serious situation. There's like actually like, you know, some legal charges against you right now.
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk about what's going on with that?
No, little shit, small shit to a giant, and then I can't, you know what I'm saying, get over.
Okay.
You know what I mean, or whatever, but shit happens.
Okay.
You know what I mean, just on the, you know what I mean, like Game say, on the path to be a rap legend, a lot of shit gonna got nothing in the way, you know what I'm saying?
All right, no doubt.
And I'm definitely on the path to being a rap legend, so all the shit, every hurdle I gotta jump, I'm gonna jump the motherfucker, like a track star.
No doubt. But we keeping it street, we keeping it in the hood, we keeping it real right here. He might not be able to say it, but I'm gonna say it, all right? The man got some, are they murder charges or attempted murder charges?
Murder charges.
Murder charges, straight up. And what's so crazy was, we're on the set of Rap City, we're taping the show, and like, I had no clue because you were so just like, you know, regular with this shit.
Yeah. It's like, man, you know, you can't fold under pressure. They say pressure busts a pipe. You gotta hold your shit together. I represent a labels, a lot of people that, you know what I'm saying, working very hard day and night. And I'm just the person that's in the forefront, you see what I'm saying? So everything I got to do got to be smart. I can't disgrace nobody. There's a lot of people that I disgrace, you know what I'm saying? So I got to hold the respect of my company down and respect the big cat down. So, you know, on the strength of that, I had to hold myself together. Can't lose my composure.
So outside of Jeezy, are there any other beefs that you feel that you have? I mean, I ain't even gonna ask you to name no names specifically,
yeah,
but
there's a lot of them fuck niggas I don't like.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
But you could talk on if you want to. You want to drop some names though.
them niggas ain't really worth it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Cause they ain't even big niggas. They ain't big as Jesus. You know, Jesus like the biggest name nigga that I'm beefing with.
All right.
So I got to go with him cause he got the opportunity to get his shit, you know what I'm saying, out there. So I have to go with him. It's not a choice.
All right, no doubt. So that situation that we were just talking about with the charges and so forth, do you feel like it was a setup because cats came like after you, like they was coming to get you?
Yeah, I think it was a setup.
Okay. Do you have any indications on who it might be? Have you heard anything on the streets? Just whatever you feel in your own heart?
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like I say, ain't too many people got the motive to do some shit like that. I just like a detective, learn, you know what I'm saying, look at the motive, who has motive to do it. And this fuck nigga, the only nigga has motive.
Jeezy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Straight up.
So it's real serious then when we talking about like actually trying to like set somebody to take someone's lives. It's on a whole nother level. It's past just the wax.
It's like, I guess it's scared of competition. You know what I'm saying? I'm independent. He major. What the hell you beefing with me for? Anyway, you feel me?
Right.
Why would you jeopardize everything you got going to beef with a nigga, an independent label? It's something I'm doing that he like.
So do you feel like it's kind of weird maybe that a dude would feel like his whole project on Def Jam Records could be make it or break it by that one record? Do you feel like, how does that make you feel, man?
It made me feel, actually, dog, I'm real proud of myself behind this shit. You know what I'm saying? Because it do make me feel special that a nigga on 2 major labels, you know what I'm saying, and I'm on no label, you feel me? The guy now be beefing with, taking time out of his career to make records about me. And you got an obligation to fulfill. Boys in the Hood album, a Def Jam album, and you doing several mixtapes. Now you still have managed to make the time to go to the studio to record a song about me. So every day I'm doing something right. You feel what I'm saying? Cause I ain't got no deal. You know what I'm saying? I got Jacob on, you know what I'm saying, $50,000 chain. I ride a 5 whip, I got a 5 car, you know what I'm saying? I got a bad bitch. You know what I'm saying? What more can you ask for?
Right.
And I ain't even so, you know what I'm saying? This is my first week, dog. I ain't got no check. You feel me? I came in the game with money, and I'm gonna leave the game with money.
Right.
That nigga there, who's to say what he gonna do? Cause the nigga so suspect. The nigga shaking like an earthquake. You know what I mean? Like a, what they call it? Quicksand. Stepping on quicksand.
Now he referred to you on Rap City as Jeezy Jr.
Shit. I've been called worse, dog. I've been called worse than that.
Now, is there anything that you could think of that make him like feel that way about you?
It's like, shit.
Like would it be like rhyme style, maybe lyrical content?
I can't see that cause you know, it's like shit being from the hood. You're real, you know, so you really from the hood. It's only too many topics that you ain't ever seen. So it's like basically we just seen the same thing as far as rap content. I mean, if he say, I don't really know where he's from. Cause nigga definitely ain't from Atlanta. But if he from where, you know, to do what he say he do, he maybe experience the same thing that I have actually experienced from what he said his rap. Cause I've actually done it. And people can actually verify that. You see what I'm saying? So when I talk about it, he talk about it, people say we're similar in style. You feel me? That's, you know what I'm saying? It's just like Beyonce and and Kelly, whatever. Both of them sing about love, you feel me? Cause they experiencing love. Both of them sing about heartbreak, cause they experience heartbreak. You feel me? Well, Beyonce and Mariah. Both of them experiencing is love and heartbreak. What else can you do? If you're a rapper, you can't be them but boastful, street, or party. I'm all of those. So if you want to step in one of those categories and be street, of course I'm gonna be street with you.
Right.
If that's all you got, you can't switch over and make that party, make people party. Then that just show you're not a well-rounded rapper. And you can't go at rappers that are well-rounded because of that fact. That makes you a hater. You know what I'm saying? You're a player, a hater. You hate on the player. Really, you're a hustler hater, because I'm a hustler. You know what I'm saying?
I totally agree. One of our problems before even the issue of prison, blind children are 17% of all children in this country, but they're 41% of all the special ed children. The educationally retarded, the learning disabled children, the behavior disordered children. 17 doesn't equal 41. And if labeled special ed, in terms of black children, 85% of the time it's going to be a black boy. See, the real challenge is the female teachers. They have designed a classroom for female students. The student with the least chance of being placed in special ed is the white female, then the black female, then the white male, and then the black male. So white boys also have similar problems with this female-run classroom. In other words, if you know that boys have a higher energy level, a lot more movement in the classroom. If you know that boys are more advanced gross motor, then a lot more gross motor activities. If you understand that boys have a higher ego or some other kinds of issues, we need to allow for that more in our classroom. And many times we aren't doing that.
Over the 50-year period that began in 1915, hundreds of thousands of Southern blacks relocated to Chicago. Some moved to the west side, but most took up residence along a corridor called the Black Belt, which centered along South State Street. With this rapid influx of immigrants, the city experienced growing pains.
There was always racism in Chicago, but the smaller the number of blacks, the less obvious signs of racism were. I mean, there was a reason why most blacks lived south along State Street, because they weren't always welcome in other areas. But there were blacks sprinkled throughout the city, far south, west, some north. When the migrants got here, what they found is that they may have been welcomed into the stockyards as workers, but when it came time to, say, sharing recreational space at Washington Park and at smaller parks out south, friction could often result.
During the first major wave of migration from 1915 to 1919, Chicago's black population doubled from 50 to 100,000. Competition for jobs and real estate immediately irritated ethnic communities bordering the rapidly growing Black Belt.
The word is very powerful, and that's how God and the Son are one. The thought is God, and the articulated word is Christ.
In October 1962, Ruby Haynes and her children became one of the first families to move into Robert Taylor Homes. Their new public housing project on the south side was designed to relieve crowding in the black community.
And, you know, then you would have to know where the children's father was and bring him in to be willing to go, you know, stand for the rent thing.
What was Robert Taylor Homes like then?
It was nice then, but it got worse. You know, everything that got worse in the last 30 years. But it was nice. I tell you, I used to go in and out of Robert Taylor at night. I always worked at night.
By 1978, Robert Taylor Homes was overrun with gangs, drug dealers, and unwed mothers. This predominantly black housing project became a symbol for the failures of the migration. After the mysterious death of a son and a near-fatal drug overdose by a daughter, Ruby Haynes returned to Clarksdale, Mississippi in 1979.
So the statue is based and inspired by an actual statue that stood in Afghanistan for quite a long time. It was built in 6th century BC, and it stood for 1,500 years or more until it was destroyed in 2001. My work actually looks at memory and erasure and kind of the aftermath of war, displacement, colonialism, but in this case it's, you know, looking at the aftermath of that kind of destruction and thinking about what it would mean if we applied like ideas of reincarnation to an object and how that would kind of help us reflect on the different erasures of recent history.
My concern about Joe Clark is that anytime you have a school where there's a high disciplinary problem, high drug problem, you can't teach when schools are not safe. He was a major contribution in making the school safe. But good principals are also strong instructional leaders. Joe Clark is not a very strong instructional leader. He made the school safe. Now we need to have another kind of administrator in there for instructional leadership. In other words, you need to have someone else who will make the school safe. That does not have to come out of the principal's office.
We got it.
Now, we've pinpointed really the end of the migration as late 60s, mid-60s, late 60s. And I think the changing nature of the American economy as part of a global economy hastened the end of opportunities, economic opportunities. By the mid-60s, you had International Harvester closing down, the stockyards closing down, prominence in steel moving to Japan, West Germany, and the Soviet Union, prominent steel production, that is. The opportunities had just disappeared.
In a little over half a century, Afro-Americans transformed from a rural, agrarian race to a predominantly urban culture.
Well, I think we can answer that question very quickly by simply asking ourselves, why were black people brought to this country? We were brought here to work. Does that reason exist today? America has a problem. What do they do with the people they no longer need? But remember, how you phrase the question determines the answer. The Negro question is, what are they going to do for us? The African question is, what are we going to do for ourselves? In other words, and very quickly, what I'm trying to get at is that there are good-intentioned parents to tell their children to get a good education, to get a good job. I don't lie to my two sons, 15 and 10. I tell them to get a good education, to be like their father, to be the boss, to run their own corporations. In America, you can have a BA, MA, and I have a PhD, and you can still be out of work. In other words, well-trained but poorly educated. So programs like Minister Farrakhan's self-help programs, see, it's a contradiction for America to condemn a Louis Farrakhan, to condemn the Black Panthers who are reinforcing self-help kind of activities. The need to create income and jobs in the black community. We earn $208 billion, but we spend 93% of our money somewhere else. Where you spend your money is where you spend your job.
Carl. I wanted to make the point in concurrence with what the gentleman just said, and that is that education, frankly, is overrated in terms of what it will do for blacks in America. It's merely a tool, and the bottom line are the economics involved. As Louis Farrakhan pointed out, why can't we at least make our own toilet paper, our own soap, and our own toothpaste, and not be dependent upon the dominant culture for our basic needs?
The transition from rural to urban has been far from perfect, but few turned back.
We never thought in terms of going back.
I have been disenchanted with Chicago a lot of times, but I'm just not one to run away from nothing. I just don't believe you solve a problem by running away.
Over the last decade, Afro-American migration leveled off, and even a few of the original migrants returned to the South.
I didn't really want to go to Chicago. My idea was that I went to Chicago due to some relatives, and well, hey, it's better, you can make more money and that type of thing, and so I decided that I would go and try, so I did.
How'd you work out? How did you work out?
Well, it was pretty nice for about 20 years, and then I decided that I wanted to get out of the fast pace and slow down, and so I moved back.
Were you happy in Chicago? I mean, there's things...
I love Chicago until a certain time, till up in the 70s. Then it just got so bad. I used to walk 2 blocks at night, 4 o'clock in the morning, get off the L and walk home and wasn't afraid then. The time got worse. I couldn't do that then.
Most blacks who migrated from the South stayed in Chicago. Afro-Americans have become an integral part of our city. The infrastructure established by black migrants and their ancestors built banks, corporations, and even took political reins of the city.
I stayed in Chicago because Chicago has so much to offer. You can find almost anything you want here in Chicago. Unfortunately, this seems to be disappearing to a certain extent.
Walk with her through the Indian cemetery out back, and you'll find their ancestors are buried together as well.
My aunt is next to him.
Were there any distinctions made as to, you all are the black Seminoles, we're nice to you, but you're the black Seminoles?
No, nothing like that. We've always been treated as one to another. No difference at all.
history that we were all taught growing up is wrong. My name is Scott Wolter, and I'm a forensic geologist.
That's very easily answered by the fact that we still live in a world where we base images or beauty off Europeans. In other words, if America defines beauty as light skin, long hair, and blue eyes, haven't they told you what ugly is? There are still people, even in this audience, using terms like good hair. If you know what good hair is, you got to know what bad hair is. If you know what pretty eyes are, you have to know what ugly eyes are. That's dialectic. Once you know what it is, you automatically know what's not. But you know what's amazing about racism? When I was in Florida, I found Europeans trying their best to run down to Florida to get a suntan to look like us. And then I found us running home with cream, trying to look like them. Do you know how many black women, even in this audience, cannot swim? Afraid their hair's gonna go back? Go back to where? Where are you afraid of it going back to?
Linda.
I just wanted to address what...
And so, well rested, we were ready to go out and explore the sights of Bamiyan, a very famous city. In fact, and an area, the whole valley, the Golden Valley of Bamiyan, is noted for an entire mountain range that was used by the Buddhists as a sacred place in centuries past. And that whole series of mountains there has Buddhist caves in it. Religious fanatics, religious priests came here, carved the caves, and dedicated all of these caves to Buddha. Now, when the Muslims came along, many of the caves were destroyed. In fact, the caves were used as residences, and the tar from the fire covered many of the paintings inside, and that sort of saved those paintings. They've been able to remove the tar deposits from the fires of the last few centuries, and they have found Buddhist paintings, some of them of great beauty and color, inside the caves. A tremendous Buddhist religious complex in this Bamiyan Valley. There were places where you could see the remains of some of the statues that had been attached by those holes to the background there. The statues have long since disappeared. One tremendous statue is being restored by Indian engineers and artists who have come up there, and they're trying to restore this tremendous one. You can see how in the olden days they used to have ropes there and put the mud around the rope to cause the folds in the robes. But that was the small Buddha, 125 feet. Here is the large Buddha. The large Buddha is 175 feet high, probably the biggest in all of the world. And here's what remains of it. The face was cut away many centuries ago when the Muslims took over this area. But there are Huddle and David at the bottom there to give you an idea of size. And you're looking up 175 feet. And above its head, above the head of this statue, we could see very unusual paintings. We were told it might be possible to go up there and see the paintings at close range.
To reach the head of the Buddha, you first climb up a little slope, which takes you halfway to your goal. Here you're looking down on the fertile Bamiyan Valley, guarded by its forts. Then you enter a series of caves they have discovered, which lead right to the head of the statue. And we'd like you to join us as we climb through the winding passages of the cliff, passing on the way Buddhist paintings which cover many of the walls and ceilings.
And this is done with our portable battery lights. As we climb up and up, we're going to be up 175 feet through these caves as we head for the top of the Buddha. The statues that you've seen, the caves themselves, are 1,500 or more years old. And this is a secret way to get to the top of the Buddha that they only recently discovered. The regular way to go up there was long since destroyed, but they're able to get in sort of a back way. And here we are going through these 1,500-year-old passageways, and there we are standing on top of the Buddha's head. Here you can see some of the statues, you can see some of the paintings, you can see that they were fired at by a lot of the tribesmen when they came here with their guns. That's what causes those splotches there. Those are bullet holes. Would you like to lean over the front of the Buddha with me? Let's go up there and lean over the statue and look straight down. That'll be a lot of fun. There it is, 175 feet down. Whoop, whoop, don't get too close there. Well, we climbed down again, all the way down this way, and had one last look at that magnificent big Buddha, 175 feet high, carved in these cliffs 1,500 years ago. We'll continue in just a few moments.
The Big Apple. Out of the 8 million people that live in this city, I wonder how many of them stop to think about the history all around them. Wall Street is named after a barricade that used to be there. One built by Dutch settlers in 1624 to keep the English out. Back then, Manhattan was actually called New Amsterdam, until the English finally broke through and gained complete control of the island, renaming it New York. Clues to the past are hidden amongst the skyscrapers, subways, and street signs.
Notice, if you will, the half-caste child. And there are ever-increasing numbers of them. Now, what is to happen to them? Are we to allow the creation of an unwanted third race? Should the coloreds be encouraged to go back to the black? Or should they be advanced to white status and be absorbed in the white population? Now, time and again, I am asked by some white man, if I marry this colored person, will our children be black? And as Chief Protector of Aborigines, it is my responsibility to accept or reject those marriages. Here is the answer. 3 generations. Half-blood grandmother, quadroon daughter, octoroon grandson. Now, as you can see, in the 3rd generation, or 3rd cross, no trace of native origin is apparent. The continuing infiltration of white blood finally stamps out the black color. The Aboriginal has simply been bred out. Now, we come to the Moore River Native Settlement. Ladies, most of you are familiar with our work here, the training of domestic servants and farm laborers. I would like to thank you for your continuing support. Hundreds of half-caste children have been gathered up and brought here to be given the benefit of everything our culture has to offer. For if we are to fit and train such children for the future, they cannot be left as they are. And in spite of himself, the native must be helped.
Well, that name was bestowed upon me by the African students, first of all, as a result of my years of activities in this country. They gave it to me. And when I went to Africa, to Dr. Nkrumah's funeral, the chief heard about me, and he sent for me to come to him. And I went, and he said, I'm going to make you officially Queen Mother of the Ashanti. And he initiated me Queen Mother. But I was Queen Mother before I went to Africa.
Joe Opala, a history professor at James Madison University in Virginia, says that from the beginning it was a melting pot tribe. So these people all banded together and somehow became Seminole?
Became Seminole, and in fact the word Seminole is not even an Indian word. It is derived from a Spanish word, cimarron, meaning runaway slave. And so from the beginning, you don't have an Indian tribe. It was a multi-ethnic coalition.
Yes, the petition called for us to go back to Africa, for those who wanted to go back. And for those who wanted to stay here, there had to be certain indemnity given for the people who wanted to stay, the people who wanted to go.
What kind of indemnity?
Well, I was asking for $200 billion.
Give thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sometimes it's good to get those applause and accolades at the beginning, because a lot of times when you get through throwing this information out, people don't feel too good about that. All right? But giving thanks to the Creator and to our ancestors and to you for being out tonight, hopefully I can share some information with you that will do you some good, that can be a working tool as we sojourn here in what has been the hells of North America. We need all of the tools and all of the information we can get to work with, not just to listen to and feel good and shout about, but to do something with, to make a positive change in our lives because we have gotten it. And my topic this evening, what I want to spin off from, because there are so many things that are relative, is the con in the Constitution, or the con and the Constitution, which is which. And this is what we want to examine tonight. I felt that it was appropriate to follow up with Brother Coakley the other night, who gave out some serious information, and just following up on what he said, not to reiterate what he said, but to build up on that, to give you even better understanding, those who were here. I chose this tonight. It's been rather revealing to me. It's something that I have embarked upon studying intensely, along with the other things that I study, because everything is so interrelated.
A good response, but he told me that we needed a member nation to introduce the resolution, since we were not officially members of the UN.
Is this with your work with the Republic of New Africa?
No, that was not. I went as a member of the Ethiopian Women, the Universal Association of Ethiopian Women.
I understand that you founded that organization.
Yes.
And what was that organization about?
To save our men from execution. They were being executed at the rate of 2 a week almost. There was somebody being executed.
Then unjustly executed?
Yes, we felt they were unjustly executed. And we tried to save some of them. We did save some.
The Black Seminole importance to the tribe.
Absolutely. There's a lot of intelligence information that passes back to Washington. For instance, General Jessup, the commanding general, writes back at one point to the War Department and says, the Negroes rule the Indians. What he was referring to was the fact that no significant decision was ever taken in the Seminole councils unless the black members agreed to it.
Yes.
And where did this take place?
In New Orleans,
Okay,
Louisiana.
you're from New Orleans,
yes.
I understand. Okay. And then you also worked with Marcus Garvey.
Yes.
Tell us first something about Marcus Garvey.
Well, I was first brought into the Marcus Garvey movement by the fact that I understood that he was to come and speak to us in Louisiana. And we went to the meeting, and lo and behold, he didn't come. And we heard that the mayor refused to allow him to come. So we were very incensed about it and got a delegation to go see why. And then it was guaranteed that Marcus Garvey would come the next night. And the hall was packed with people. And everybody went with ammunition.
They had guns?
They had guns. Everybody had guns. Blue Steel, Smith & Westerns, German Lugers. We had plenty of German Lugers because, you know, the war it was boys from the war and everything. Okay. And I had 2 guns with me. And they all had guns and ammunition, a bag of ammunition. Everybody had what you call a suitcase today. We used to call satchels.
Cleveland County Sheriff resigns after being indicted on embezzlement charges today. Sheriff Chris Amison pleading no contest to the indictment, which accuses him of misspending thousands in campaign funds and county dollars.
News 4's Spencer Humphrey is here now in studio with more on the deal the Attorney General's office gave Amison. Spencer.
Yeah, in exchange for Amison pleading no contest to the Attorney General's office tells us they dropped 3 of the 4 charges against Amison, ordered him to resign, gave him no jail time, and also required him to pay thousands in restitution to a charity he got to pick. This indictment from Oklahoma's multi-county grand jury laying out 4 separate counts of embezzlement against now former Cleveland County Sheriff Chris Ameson. 3 accusing Ameson of misspending up to $15,000 in campaign funds on personal expenses. A 4th count accusing him of using county money to pay for his wife to attend government conferences. In exchange for Ameson pleading no contest Monday, the Attorney General's office dropped that 4th count, as well as 2 of the campaign misspending counts. A spokesperson for the Attorney General's office telling us the 3 dropped charges should have been filed under one single charge. The plea deal also requiring Ameson to immediately resign, give up his CLEAT certification, and serve a 5-year suspended sentence. Ameson submitting his resignation letter Monday, saying, "After 33 years of law enforcement service, the time has come for me to retire and begin the next chapter of my life." The deal also requires Ameson to pay $10,000 in restitution. That AG's office spokesperson telling us law allows Ameson to pay that restitution to a charity of his choice. They say Ameson chose to give it to Norman Bible Church, which meets inside this Norman hotel. The Cleveland County Sheriff's Office Facebook page makes clear Ameson has a relationship with the church, regularly hosting church leaders to preach to inmates at the Cleveland County Jail as part of a prison ministry program as recently as last week. In December, the Norman Transcript reported Ameson was working alongside the church to replicate and market that prison ministry program to other detention centers across the state. Despite that relationship, the AG's office telling us they could only deny Ameson's choice if Ameson or his family were actually on staff with the church. Attorney General Drummond unavailable for an interview Monday, saying in a statement, public officials are entrusted with taxpayer dollars and must be held to the highest standard. Sheriff Ameson took an oath to enforce the law. He has neglected his duty and is no longer fit to serve the residents of Cleveland County. This all also comes 1 year since State Auditor Cindy Byrd's office found Ameson's office overspent its budget by millions and seemed to make little effort to try to stay within it. Back in 2024, county commissioners unanimously approved a taxpayer-funded bailout to cover more than $3 million Ameson overspent as sheriff. A spokesperson for all 3 Cleveland County commissioners telling us Monday they plan to meet soon to figure out how to move forward.
Their top priority is the residents here in Cleveland County. They want to make sure that taxpayer dollars are spent appropriately and properly. They also want to make sure that the public is protected, and that means no public services become interrupted by this. So deputies, 911 call dispatch, all of that will continue as normal, and deputies will continue working around the clock. They want to make sure that the sheriff's office as a whole is, made whole despite this situation.
Meanwhile, the sheriff's office tells us Undersheriff Michael Finley is now serving as acting sheriffs. They say he will stay in that role until county commissioners appoint a new sheriff to serve the remainder of Ameson.
From coming again.
Okay.
And we wanted to protect him. And so we went. 3,500 people was in that hall. And so when Garvey came, we applauded very much. And he said, "My friends, I want to apologize for not speaking to you last night, but the reason I didn't speak to you is because the mayor permitted himself to be used as a stooge by the police department to prevent me from speaking to you." And when he said that, the police jumped up and said, "I'll run you in." And when the police did that, everybody jumped up on the benches. We had benches then. And took out their guns straight up. The guns were straight up in the air. "Speak, Garvey, speak." And Garvey said, and as I was saying, and he went and repeated himself. And the police filed out of there like little puppy dogs with their little tails between their legs. Every policeman filed out of the hall.
Joe Opala, who has worked to preserve their legacy, says that's wrong.
The Black Seminoles fought side by side, died, bled for those lands in Florida. They've been together. They've been good brothers and good neighbors for 3 centuries. It makes no sense now to say they're not Indians.
Our ancestors were some of the most fiercest fighters during the war.
During the Indian Wars?
Yes, due to the fact that they knew if they were recaptured, they were going into slavery, back into slavery.
Bud Crockett and his sister Polly Gentry traced their Seminole roots back to their great-grandmother Dora Davis, who came to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. But family legend and physical resemblance aren't enough. Today, you have to be able to prove your Indian heritage, which is hard for most black Seminoles because of something called the Dawes Rolls, a government census of sorts created in the late 1800s, which separated the tribe into the blood or red Seminoles and the freedmen or black Seminoles. Intermarriage made no difference, as Polly and Bud discovered with their ancestors.
If you had any black blood in you whatsoever, you were a freedman.
So it didn't matter how much Indian blood you had. Just
right.
Any black blood,
right.
You went on a separate roll.
Right.
And on the black Seminole roll, it doesn't list that you have any Indian blood.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel equal to the blood Seminoles?
Sure, at one time, yes. Still do. Still do. But when money and the government entered into the picture, everything changed. Everything changed.
Start a chapter.
Okay.
We had a chapter going down there.
Okay. And you purchased stock in
the Black Star Line, yes.
What was that? What was the Black Star Line?
Black Star Line was ships that Marcus Garvey was buying.
For what purpose?
To go to Africa. To go to Africa and to trade with Africa. He was going to trade with the West Indies and Africa.
How does this relate to us? You know, we've been told that the Constitution doesn't apply to us. Then if you don't have the supreme law of the land, then what do you have as we're in this land? One thing I've heard as I've listened to some of the eminent professors, teachers, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben Yaknan, but especially Dr. Clark. I've listened to him for quite a while, and I've listened very intently to what he had to say. And he talked about our ordeal, this thing that we've come through called the slave era. I mean, it was a traumatic experience. We're still reeling from its repercussions. We're still in a recovery state. And this is why I think that this information is very vital. Because without information, you, as the brother said, you can't form a plan. I mean, what you got to go on? I was in service to the beast at one time in the military, and I was with an outfit that was a recon outfit. And recon is short for reconnaissance. And reconnaissance means information gathering. They had an outfit, a unit, with no guns or anything. All they did was go out and get information. They had pictures. They had airplanes with pictures we call RF-4Cs, and they had high pans and low pans. They could get wide views, low views, but they had to have something concrete to take back so that the fellows with the muscle could go in and tear things up, you know, wreak this havoc. But they had to have that information before we can really do anything, before we can really strategize and formulate any plan of quote-unquote attack. You've got to have some reconnaissance information. The cavalry had them. They call them scouts. We have to go out and scout and know what's going on. We need to know who's who and what's what. And so tonight I have some information that I'd like to share with you. First of all, I'd like to give some background, to make some preface remarks. I'd like to start off, and as I studied this information dealing with the Constitution and government, and as Dr. Clark said, as I started to mention a while ago, he always mentioned to say that we are a politically naive people. Now, I know if you got a voter's registration card and you vote every trip and you politically active, you don't think that you are. Well, you may not be. You may be more upon what I'm talking about tonight than I am. So therefore, if you are, I want you to rescue me, as Karinga said, rescue me if I'm wrong. What I'm about to present to you tonight, please.
No, the people sabotaged the ships. There was great sabotage. You know, on Garvey's board, he had a lot of enemies of our people. You couldn't talk about Africa in those days without expecting the agents to be around you. You had the agents of Belgium, you had the agents of France, you had the agents of England, and all those agents were sitting on his board.
Or trying to sabotage his work.
And yes, in the form of blackskins.
Okay.
You see, so they sabotaged the ships.
All right.
And then they charged Garvey with fraud because they were saying that he's selling unworthy ships, you know.
This is what it now comes down to, proof. I've met several black Seminole women, some of whom look Indian, and yet they can't participate in the benefits. They know they have Indian blood.
I'm well aware of that. The individuals that I know of that say that, you're absolutely right. They show a lot of Indian in them.
This kind of thing also.
We're trying to encourage black people to really dig on what they are, you know, to appreciate what they are and to let it come out in whatever forms of expression they want it to. Like we've seen the poets, and the numbers that they're doing on the show tonight are kind of in a mellow mood, you know, but black people have rhythms. They move and they groove, and the poets can also get to this. They have some poems that have people standing up and patting their hands and patting their feet and popping their fingers. And like, this is what black people are about. Black people are about rhythm. Now what we have to do is we have to take these rhythms and we have to hook them up with our intellectual energies and, you know, our creative, put all our creative powers together to create a new world, a new economic world, political world.
But in channeling that, you're erasing and dismissing something. What are the things you want to erase and dismiss?
We're going to erase and dismiss everything that's going to stop us from doing what we have to do. I mean, because, like, what we're fighting against is, you know, oppression. You know, black people in America have been oppressed for hundreds of years. You know, both, not only physically, you know, you look at the job statistics and you see we're poor and we're on the bottom. But we've been oppressed emotionally, psychologically, and in every way you can think of. We've just been denied ourselves, and we're going to take it back.
In other words, you're trying to erase the black exploiters, the black capitalists, all of those elements.
Before we can even deal with the black exploiters and the black capitalists, we know we have to get to the white exploiters and the white capitalists. And see, when we take care of them, then we can take care of our own community. We can begin to tighten up on the brothers and sisters in our own community who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
In other words, you see the last poets as the beginning of a progression that's going to deal with both the economics and the politics and the cultural aspects of the community.
At this point, it's part of a beginning, you know, because like it's happening all over the country. It's happening in Newark with the Spirit House. It's happening in the West Coast with the Watts happening and the theater groups, the black theater groups they have out there. It's happening in Chicago with the Afro-American Heritage Theater. It's happening all over. Brothers are coming together. We're beginning to understand that our culture, our Afro-American culture, is what's going to feed us to deal in the political and social and the economic arenas. And we're going to get this together, and we're going to put it out for our people to feed them in their struggle.
And then what must they give you in return? What are you expecting from the community?
Well, the whole thing is a mutual thing. Like, we're feeding, we hope to provide the spiritual sustenance for our people to do their thing, and in turn, we hope that they will support us, whatever that means. If it means coming to our shows and supporting the East Wind, supporting the Last Poets where they appear, like, that's one way. Another way is for them to just go on and whatever they're into, to develop that, so that we can know that we can rely on what they're doing. If they're teachers, like, they should be tightening up the schools that they're in. They should be getting those black curriculums in there. They should be turning on the kids.
Do you, and this addresses itself to, I'd like to ask Barbara, do you feel that what the poets are doing is more relevant or meaningful than to using, say, European culture and heritage in teaching in schools?
Definitely. Poetry, black poets particularly, and black musicians are probably the only creative artists who I think are in tune with the people, in tune with the times. You see, we have to create a new reality for the future. And poetry, I guess because you can write a poem faster than you can write a play or something. The theater is not doing anything. I mean, that's why these poets are so exciting. They're dealing with the people, they're talking to the people, for the people. It's an integral thing. I mean, it gives and takes. If they can strengthen, you see, the purpose of culture is not to strip people, it's to strengthen people. And this whole white culture thing has only stripped us, you see.
But is it also, we're slugged in with relating to that? And what you're doing, you're suggesting there be new rhythms, new forms, new ways of dealing.
No, not
and
new
making.
ones. They're already there. We've got to put them up there so we can all, you know, dig it. They're already there. Harlem is a theater, you know. You just walk down the streets everywhere.
You hear funnier things on the street in Harlem than you hear on Broadway any day.
Now, do you need performers, trained performers to carry on this? Or do you feel you can go on the streets and bring people in and make them all poets? Do they have something to communicate that can go out and be poetic?
Every black person, when they get to themselves, when they get inside themselves, has poetry inside them. Like, it's merely a matter of technique and mechanics to get it to a level where they can express it to a mass of people. Like a brother and sister together, the brother rapping to the sister, that's poetry, man. Like, he's bringing that out. You know, he's trying to turn her on. You know, he's trying to turn her on.
All right, but is the community supporting your activities at this point? I don't think we're really geared to going to see black theater. We'd rather go to some bar or something. Are the people really coming in to see what you're offering at East Wind?
The people are coming to the East Wind, yes. Every time we do something there and we put the word out there's something happening, more people come. Like, you see, it's not because our people aren't geared to going places, it's that black people haven't found any places that were relevant to go. You see, they went to a play, and the play was about some old Europeans doing something that didn't mean anything to them, you know? It was about like a bunch of sick people going through some games that didn't mean anything to them.
The last poet. I was the last poet.
How did the work of Marcus Garvey influence your life?
Oh, very much so. Oh, yes, because he taught me about the glories of Africa. I never went to sleep anymore since then. Never. I did much study since then of my own.
On the glories of Africa?
Yes.
Mistaken identity, a violent arrest, all caught on camera, and now a massive legal battle against the city. Timothy Brown, the Brooklyn man beaten inside of a liquor store by 2 undercover detectives, has filed his notice of claim seeking millions after being dragged through broken glass. Fox 9's Teresa Perillo is on the story for us. Teresa, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Bianca, this is, in fact, that complaint that was filed by Timothy Brown seeking $100 million from the NYPD as a result of that violent beatdown and subsequent arrest. He says the detectives who beat him had the wrong guy, and they also violated his constitutional rights. Now, according to Timothy Brown, this is the first time that he is having his say about that incident that unfolded on April 14th. We got to hear him detail what happened, how he felt, what he was going through, the embarrassment, the shame, and the effects that still linger. Now, to remind you, it was around 4 p.m. on April 14th. Brown stopped at a liquor store in Brooklyn to buy a bottle of wine. He says without warning, 2 plainclothes detectives with the Brooklyn North Narcotics Unit grabbed him, told him he was under arrest. They then began to use force, throwing punches and at one point even kicking him. The cops were participating in an undercover crack cocaine sting, but they had the wrong guy. Now, Brown wants to make the NYPD pay enough money so that the cops are deterred from this kind of behavior. He and his legal team also want institutional change, including a hit to the police pension fund when something like this happens. Here is Timothy Brown talking about the assault.
Disrespected, embarrassed, and I was brutally beaten for no reason. I work, I'm on my business, I'm a taxpaying citizen, and what happened to me should never happen to anyone else. It was wrong, and it was disgusting, and my life will never be the same.
Now, we've heard from both the mayor and the police commissioner about this. They talked about disbanding that narcotics unit. They also have modified or transferred out the officers that were involved. But it is important to mention, Bianca, both Brown and his mom say they have not personally heard from the mayor or the police commissioner, and they say, quote, they are disgusted about that. That's the latest from Lower Manhattan today. Back to you in the studio.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Teresa.
What happened to your front porch? You have no steps.
No steps. No steps there, no steps here. And I need a whole house here.
Polly Gentry has lived her entire life on land her grandmother received 100 years ago as a full member of the tribe. All Seminoles, red and black, were given land in Oklahoma. Polly says she could use some of the $56 million judgment fund to repair her house.
My husband decided he's going to put some bricks around it, and he got, far as you see them bricks is now, and he had a heart attack.
And it's been like this?
And it's been like this, because you couldn't get nobody to fix it.
Do you have the money to fix it?
No. No, Lord, no.
So, did you apply for a benefit?
Yeah, but they wouldn't give it to me.
The Seminoles have $56 million coming from the government, and how much of it did you want?
I want enough that I can get me a house built where I can live comfortable, because it ain't no comfortable here.
This whole business of degree of Indian blood is just a concoction. It's just an excuse now that's been dreamed up of late in order to exclude the blacks from membership in the tribe. I can tell you this, 100 years ago or 150 years ago, Seminole Indians would not have been talking about whether or not this black person has Indian blood. It simply wouldn't have mattered. They were Seminoles.
The Ethiopian women had helped the Ethiopians after I think Mussolini attacked Ethiopia during the war.
Oh, yes. We played a great role in getting clothing and getting food, getting things, sheets. Went to the laundry and got sheets and got the nurses to sterilize the sheets and roll them up in bandages to send to Ethiopia. Oh, yes.
Did the supplies reach Ethiopia?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Did you ever meet the emperor at the time?
I've never met the emperor personally, but I've seen him a lot of times.
Okay. Yeah. What is your work now is with the monuments, you said, and you want to push forth the idea of building a monument on Mount Abbas Ababa.
Yes, it's absolutely necessary, very necessary for our people to understand that we must build that monument to those millions, 100 millions who perished during the traffic of slavery.
Is this monument going to be a physical building?
It's going to be a school, a college, a big, everlasting monument. Yes. And we're going to have African students to come and attend this school too.
I was in a library not long ago, and I saw your picture in the main library at 42nd Street in New York. What was that about?
Well, the Schlesinger sent throughout the country. They gathered pictures of the outstanding women, the most militant women, the women who have made the greatest contribution, over 70 years old. They had to be over 70.
How old are you now?
Yes, I'm 87.
87? Right.
Yes, I'm 87.
And these women were over 70 years old?
Yes, they had to be over 70 years old. And I was one of the 10 outstanding women that they had in the country. And they made my picture.
That was a great honor.
Yes, it was. It's very great. And they put it in the library.
Okay, and also in the...
on 42nd Street and in the Schomburg Library.
And I think there was a meeting there at the Schomburg also commemorating the women who were selected. Yes. We have not much time left in this program. And would you be able to sum up what you think a message, let's say for black youth or Africans, that would help them in knowing themselves and being a contributor to their race?
Yes, well, I think the most important thing is to study and to find your name, who you are, to get a name for yourself. You have to get a name. Don't go through life with a European name. You've got to put down that name. Just take a name. Just take an African name and name yourself. And learn who you are. That's the...
How would you suggest that a young person go about that?
Well, you got to look yourself in the mirror. Who are you? Who are you? Most of our people don't know who they are. They don't know. They think in European. They don't have a mind of their own. They got to get their right mind back. They can't think. They can't think. I don't care if you have your PhD. Don't tell me you've gone to the best colleges. The best college didn't give you your identity, didn't give you a national identity at all. You've got to be able to comprehend what you're thinking. You've got to be able to understand and think for yourself and stop thinking in the pattern that the other people want you to think all the time.
You think this begins with taking upon yourself an African name?
Oh, yes.
And that has a
Yes.
great significance and, I guess,
Yes.
influence over the mind.
Yes.
I know it has for me.
Yes.
So you suggest that the young black people take upon themselves an African name
Yes.
to get to know who they are.
That's right. I didn't have to change my name because the Moors was a great nation of Africans. You see, I didn't have to do that.
So you were born with an
Yes,
African name.
I was born a Moor. Yeah.
It's very good.
Mhm.
We have here Queen Mother Moore, and this is the Flo Kennedy Show. Thank you very much. See you next time.
I was thinking it's about time I hear something besides blondes have more fun.
What about you, Barbara?
Well, listening to the last poets is a religious experience for me. You know, they make you feel like you can relax now. There's a new breed of black men, you know. You can just...
New details tonight in the death of infamous D.C. cocaine kingpin Rayful Edmond. He died at the age of 60 months after he was released from prison.
Edmond's drug operation profited hundreds of millions of dollars at the height of the crack epidemic back in the 1980s. Fox 5's Bob Barnard is live in Northwest tonight with more. Bob?
There are no confirmed details about his death, but numerous reports indicate Rayful Edmond died suddenly of a heart attack at the halfway house where he was living in Miami.
I'm back better than ever.
This is the most recent and only video of Rayful Edmond we've seen since his release from a federal prison last summer, captured on camera at an airport just after his release and shared on social media.
My first thought was, man, I hope he wasn't assassinated. But as it turns out, he apparently died a natural death. And anybody who's been in prison long enough eating prison food, it doesn't take much to imagine how that can happen.
Billy Murphy is one of the attorneys who represented Rayful Edmond over the years. Here was Murphy outside D.C.'s federal courthouse in September 1990, the day Edmond was sentenced to life in prison.
This kid was a genius. There was no question about it. I sat with him every day during a very long trial. What would have happened to him had he instead of had having two parents who trained him to be a drug dealer? From the earliest of ages, I might tell you, if he had had two parents who were successful business people or business executives who trained him in the right direction.
Rayful Edmond spent 35 years in prison, arrested at age 24, and convicted of running a multi-million-dollar criminal conspiracy, dealing crack cocaine on the streets of D.C., leading to multiple murders as well. Then U.S. Attorney Jay Stevens.
I think Rayful Edmond has been held accountable for the human destruction and tragedy that he has brought to this city and to the lives of thousands of young people who live in this community.
But Rayful Edmond would continue running his enterprise from inside prison, later becoming an informant, leading to the arrests of nearly a dozen of his former cohorts.
I don't think I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I think I'm going to go home one day soon.
You think your appeal will be successful?
Yes, I hope and pray that it will.
Turns out his prayers were answered. Despite being sentenced to life in prison, Edmond was released into the community last summer, his sudden death coming just 5 months later. And there's no word on any services. Rayful Edmond is survived by his mother, who served time in prison as part of that conspiracy, and at least one sister. Angie?
Yes, Louisiana was called to Washington for a hearing. Said, why have you cut these people off? And Long got up and said that that two states had cut them off, and he didn't hear any ruckus about it. And why all this fuss about going on in Louisiana? I say, because you didn't have any Ethiopian women in those states. And they rapped the gavel for me because that was a judicial hearing. It wasn't to be one to speak. But I spoke there. I said, because you didn't have any Ethiopian women.
I was told that...
Sylvia Davis, who was one of the 4 Black Council members at the time, says it was humiliating.
It's been hard for me to sit there and listen to the way they talk to the freedmen. It's been very hard for me.
What do they say?
The racist names that they be using toward them, calling them animals' names, cows, stomping feet, roaring at them, telling them to get out.
They don't want you.
That's right. They'll tell you to go back to Africa.
Why do you think the freedmen, the Black Seminoles, belong as part of this tribe?
Because we had people that die along the trail just like any other people in the nation.
But I guess they're saying, yes, thank you. You fought alongside us in Florida. That was 200 years ago. It's time for us to separate.
I would just let them know that we have all rights within the Seminole Nation.
The welfare dismissed 23,000 families from the roll, put them off, white and black, mothers with illegitimate children, just threw them off, sent the mothers letters saying, this is your last letter you're going to receive. The last welfare you got, the last one, is the last one you're going to get. Not the next one you're going to get, but the last one you receive. The one you've eaten up is the last one you're going to get.
That's hard.
That's right. And told the Red Cross, don't help these people. They're illegitimate and they're not entitled to help. Told the Charity Hospital not to help them. told the Salvation Army, don't give them a thing because they're not entitled. So the mothers had nowhere to go. We had to help the mothers to get food. We went around and begged the stores to give us food. The French market gave us food, baskets, cartons of food. And the bakeries gave us baskets of bread. All of their stale bread they gave us. And we, the pharmacists gave us medicine for the babies and all.
Your deep dark eyes have seen me fall.
Say blackness
and rise.
Say color of earth. Can I talk to you? Say what? Hey, evening flower, hey, soft maroon lady, hey, trembling blackness, look, you don't have to, it's all right, you see. Lady Black, can you drop the chain in your muscle? Can you breathe? Can you talk to me? Hey, bundle of screams and laughter, can I plant a seed of blackness in you and celebrate the death of your death? Will you suffer the waters of truth to rain down upon you? Can I stretch in the soil of your hair? Say blackness. Will you walk through the world with me, unafraid of the rain? Hey, big belly. Hey, balloon lady. Hey, fat, what's that planet you're hiding? Talk to me. Explain the attraction you have for death. Explain your shame, Miss Universe. Hey, cream. Hey, caramel cream. Hey, yellow. Hey, yellow, yellow. Say brown. Hey, browner than brown. Hey, black. Hey, bluish black. Hey, violet rays. Hey, prism of waves. Hey, rainbow in the city. Can I plant a seed of blackness in you? Can you laugh, chant in the monsoon river, rain life on the depth of your hair? Feel it curl and twist, kneel and pray, rise and dance in everlasting, everlasting, everlasting life. Say, Willa Mae. Hey, Audrey. Hey, Cynthia, Aretha, talk to me. Talk. No, let me talk to you. Say blackness. Can I touch you?
Your play is Look, I've got to die trying to fulfill
Black woman,
my promise.
I want to create a beautiful world for you, black woman. A world of beauty for beautiful you. A world where black women can bathe, naked and unashamed in gentle streams. A world where poetry is you, black woman, bathing in gentle, rhythmic waves. I will create until I create that world for you, black woman.
No matter what the cost may be, just teach my children, black woman, so they may grow strong and live free, so they may grow strong and live free.
Man, salute to Mac Dre, man. Like, fuck all the bullshit I'm talking, man. Dre was the motherfucking Prince of the Bay, the Michael Jackson of the Bay, the swag, magnificent, the one that really put the motherfucking unity together, my nigga. Like, everybody unified. Sacramento, Vallejo, Oakland, Frisco, Like even Stockton, Modesto, like everybody unified. Fucking Seattle, Portland, fucking KC. We all unified, bro. He brought that shit together, man. And like, I love the Bay, and I'm from this motherfucker, but it ain't been no unity like that since my man died. The one that held the torch was the Jacker.
Right.
And when Jacker died, that shit just fizzled out, and everybody just doing their own shit. I'm used to the Bay, everybody being unified. Like,
I was interested in breaking Jim Crow, and yes, Jacker came as a result of that. And Statue Page and all of those people, I didn't know them, but they all was employed as a result of breaking Jim Crow in the big league. That's right.
Yes.
All across the country?
Yes.
Let me tell you what it looks like from the outside, though. It looks like the freedmen fought wars, died with you, moved on the Trail of Tears from Florida to Oklahoma with you, and now suddenly there's a big pot of money. Let's exclude them.
That may be true to some extent, but I don't think that's all of the reasons for what has happened.
That's mostly what I'm taking up with now, trying to build that monument and trying to build the institute.
The institute?
Yes.
That's the school?
Yes.
You once told me that you were fighting for the freedom of Lizzie Williams.
Oh, for Lizzie Williams, yes. Lizzie Williams, bless her heart. She's so dear. She just sent me a Christmas card with $5 in it. She's so wonderful.
She was sentenced?
She was sentenced to 218 years in prison. She's in her 70s.
Why was she sentenced?
For perjury in Alabama. For perjury. Her boyfriend stole 2 chickens, and she swore that he was with her. And they charged her for that, for lying, you know, that he was with her instead of stealing the chickens, and then charged her with accessory to the crime.
The East Wing is what we like to call a cultural center. It's located in Harlem on 125th Street, 23 East 125th Street. And it's the home base for the last poets who are going to appear this evening. Right now, the poets are trying to use the East Wing as a base to branch out into the entire Harlem community, to play in the community, be it outside in the streets or in various community centers, churches, wherever the people will have us. We're trying to bring what we're doing to the people because that's where it came from.
Can the people come into East Wing to catch you there?
Well, we have shows quite frequently. As a matter of fact, this weekend we're having one, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 8:30 at the East Wing. The Last Poets will be appearing there along with the Spirit House Movers and Players from Newark, New Jersey, and Sunrise Orchestra.
Reparations has been here and have been worked on for generations. From the very beginning, people were knocking on the door saying, we are owed for our labor.
Callie House, she was born a slave. She went out all around in the community telling black people that they ought to ask the government to get some money because they were poor and they were desperate by the 1900s. She had 300,000 dues-paying members. It was the largest organization of black folk that had existed. Pretty soon, her activities came to the attention of the government, and they convicted her of fraud. The federal charge was that at a time when you should have known that the federal government would never give Negroes anything, why were you telling Negroes they should organize to try to get something? They sent her to prison to serve a 1-year term. She got out of prison, she went back to Nashville to this shotgun house.
You know, at one time, there was Jim Crow in the league that blacks couldn't play. And the people, especially the Jewish people, was fighting Jim Crow in the big league. And they asked me to head the committee to fight Jim Crow. in the big league. And of course, I was a Negro then. I used to be a Negro. And everything sounded good to me. The Negro fights Jim Crow and that kind of thing. And I fought Jim Crow. And I didn't realize what I was doing. If I hadn't been a Negro, I wouldn't have fought to get a Negro in the big league. I wouldn't have did that. I would have fought to get a team in the big league. One of our baseball team, we had great teams. I dismantled the teams. My work dismantled the teams. We had neighborhoods where our ball games would play and the children was happy and the old ladies was selling pies and things at the ball games and children was shining shoes and we had hotels and it was something when they had a ball game in town. But all of that's dismantled. All of that, there's no more hotels or anything. You see, Jim Crow has done away with all of that.
Excuse me.
He also says the red and black Seminoles have just grown apart over the years and have little in common today. But that's not how Sylvia Davis sees it. She's hired Will and John Veely, two young attorneys who specialize in Indian law. They're suing the government on behalf of the black Seminoles.
The entire tribe received a county in exchange for a state. When that was individually allotted, all Seminoles, including the black Seminoles, received their individual allotments. When the United States awarded $56 million, shouldn't the same people that received the land before also receive the money? The tribe's the same.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs chose not to speak on camera, citing the pending lawsuit. However, in a letter to us, they say that these kinds of issues are up to the tribe. Eligibility for the judgment fund, the letter says, may depend upon whether a current member is descended from a member of the tribe as the tribe existed in 1823. However, the letter says, deciding who's in and who's out is solely within the purview of the tribe.
To educate our people, to help our people to understand, to de-Negroize us. To de-Negroize us, change our minds from European minds. You know, we have no idea the condition that we're in, the psychoneurosis that we suffer. We suffer a terrible, terrible blight. We don't know who we are. We use European names, and we just are comfortable with our condition. We really don't know who we are. We have no idea. We're captive. And we're absolutely comfortable with this situation.
Am I missing something?
No. You're on target. You're on track. You're totally on target, totally on track. His message to a lot of people who had lost hope was nationalistic. And he didn't want them to stay there, but to be jarred into the realization that they had a past before slavery, that they had a responsibility now, and that no one was going to give them anything, even freedom. They had to fight for it and they had to struggle for it.
Well, when you read articles, I don't know if you read Carl Rowan, but I mean, he didn't like Malcolm X when all this was going on, but he hasn't mellowed a lot in his old age.
Now, let me just say this. You see, that was a whole group of black people, and I think I've said this before, that white people had an agenda during that time, and it was a white agenda, okay? You know, for themselves, for their families, keeping this, barring that, meaning us, and that sort of thing. So that it was expected that white people have an agenda for themselves. However, black people were supposed to have a white agenda. And a lot of white people who saw black people having their own agenda as rejection, as they must be teaching hate, so that when Malcolm talked about solidarity and security and liberation and freedom and justice and that whole 9 yards, that was just totally out of line.
Well, Mr.
You were
Rowan says here, he
supposed
says,
to
Malcolm X never
listen
worked to get blacks, in a desegregated school. He never went to jail for trying to win blacks the right to vote. And so that...
But it's the same thing I'm saying. So that if you were not in integration, teaching integration, and, patting white people on the head and telling them how good they were, if you said really how you felt, then that was okay and that was acceptable. And white people supported that kind of leadership. So that Malcolm, on the other hand, talking and telling people you got to stand up. You cannot blame white folks forever, but we must blame white folks for the present condition. But you've got to break out of it. Now, there were a lot of white people that supported Malcolm. There are a lot of white people who want an end to this and a beginning to another kind of living in life. Now, a lot of black folks still, and even in 1992, don't see black people with a black agenda. They see black people with a white agenda, and this is not going to work.
So if you boil it down into, as Ross Perot says, sound bites, Malcolm X was trying to say the black people must get together as black people and get our problems straightened out before we can mix and figure things out with the rest of the population.
And that, my dear, in as you say, a sound bite, is the whole thrust of the nationalistic mode. Now, once saturated totally and completely in that belief system, and you're spewing it out as if it is your own behavior, your own thoughts, then you can adequately move to what Malcolm called the secondary level of nationalism, which means then working with individuals regardless to their ethnicity, crossing political, religious, and ethnic lines. Okay? But I think I would like to work with people who had some sort of yardstick of how to measure me and how to measure interest to me and dedication to me. And I would do that by whether or not the individual cared about themselves, whether or not the individual cared about their own people. If you don't care anything about you, I don't want you to care about me.
So today, 1992, are we any better off? I mean, as a population, as a whole, do you feel better about things? I mean, has there been improvement for the races?
Well, at least we can talk about it.
Yeah, we're not killing each other as much.
We can talk about it.
Okay. There are thousands, maybe millions of young people today wearing X caps, shirts, and that kind of thing, and they're going to see the movie. What do you want them to get out of this?
That they have to be responsible for their own lives, that interstitially they need to be strengthened, and that if they need to walk spiritually holding Malcolm's hand, they can do that he's there for them. If they want to wear some memorabilia of Malcolm and feel strengthened through the vibrations of that they can do that. But strengthen they must, and they must accept the responsibility for their lives and for the future generation, and they must be committed and responsible to an agenda for themselves and their people, because their ancestors made a great number of sacrifices for them, including Malcolm.
But on that agenda, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but hate shouldn't be part of that agenda, should it?
Excuse me, hate is an emotion. I think it's an excellent emotion. Sure, hate can be part of that emotion. Love can be part of that emotion, because we are a redemptive people. And we're going to get stronger, so that reciprocity must be a focal point. There's nothing wrong with hate. There is a season for everything under the sun. You know, you have to understand love and hate. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think what has happened is that bigots have added a meaning to it that should not have been there. So there's nothing wrong with hate. And they've got to dislike some things, and you've got to hate some things with a passion. And destruction, they must dislike and hate with a passion. So that the old racist definition of hate, perhaps not, because they've added some things to it that they should not. But love and hate go together.
Poetry, black poets particularly, and black musicians are probably the only creative artists who I think are in tune with the people, in tune with the times. You see, we have to create a new reality for the future. That's why these poets are so exciting. They're dealing with the people, they're talking to the people, for the people. It's an integral thing. I mean, it gives and takes. See, the purpose of culture is not to strip people, it's to strengthen people.
About that.
Yes, that was very great. It was very widely attended with 8,000 women.
Okay.
Yes.
During your travels, recent travels to Africa, you went to Ethiopia, I understand.
Yes, I went to Ethiopia.
Did you witness some of the famine?
No, they didn't let us go there. We didn't see anything of the famine. You wouldn't even know they had a famine.
I guess
they kept that from the people.
I guess that's sometimes like people visiting New York never get to see Harlem and
That's right. That's right. That's
okay,
right.
They just show you the...
That's right, the part they want you to see.
Black America essentially reinvented itself from being a very rural culture, which it had always been, to being a very urban culture, unusually probably the most urban of America's various ethnic subcultures today. That's a big change, and it's just really starting to, the effects are just starting to be felt.
By the mid-'70s, the Great Migration ended. Today, a slight reverse migration back south is underway. But no matter how many Chicagoans pack up and leave, the migrants and their ancestors, who now account for more than half of Chicago's population, have forever changed our city.
When you got off stage, you guys had a conversation after you did the cow, right?
Yeah.
What was that short, exchange between you two? Was it?
It was pretty much like about that, like just like, man, like, you know what I'm saying? Be proud of like how far you made it and like where the shit you doing and where you taking it to. Like, nigga, you see what you doing out here? Yeah, let them tears out, let them shits fall. You know what I'm saying? And really just asking me about, after that, we was just really talking about that song I did, Overdose. He was just like, yo, what's that song you did like 3 songs back? That shit crazy, you know what I'm saying? That shit I did with Alchemist called Overdose. We were just talking about that, but he was just really just letting me know, like, and it was just, I needed to hear that from somebody like him, like, man, like, cause I had broke down on stage and shit, crying and all that, like, you know what I mean? I don't be knowing how to, like, suppress that shit, man. Sometimes it just be, it have to come out, cause I've been, like, lashed out at somebody. It'll just go.
It'll come out in some other way.
Come out in some other way, kind of.
A negative way, possibly. Yeah.
So that's why I appreciated hearing that from him. Like, man, don't hold that in, bro. Don't hold that in. Like, let that out, man. That's real shit. Like, let that shit out, man.
Uh-oh, now this is way off. You see, you command both God and the devil. Now here is where it's way off. They are both the same one. What is the devil? The devil is your ignorance of God. That's what the devil is, ignorance. Self-ignorance. The devil is what you do to yourself not knowing that you're doing it. What does the Bible say? Thou art ensnared, how? By the words of thy mouth. Oh my. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge.
Notice, if you will, the half-caste child. And there are ever increasing numbers of them. Now, what is to happen to them? Are we to allow the creation of an unwanted third race? Should the coloreds be encouraged to go back to the black? Or should they be advanced to white status and be absorbed in the white population? Now, time and again, I am asked by some white man, if I marry this colored person, will our children be black? And as Chief Protector of Aborigines, it is my responsibility to accept or reject those marriages. Here is the answer. 3 generations. Half-blood grandmother, quadroon daughter, octoroon grandson. Now, as you can see in the 3rd generation, or 3rd cross, no trace of native origin is apparent. The continuing infiltration of white blood finally stamps out the black color. The Aboriginal has simply been bred out. Now, we come to the Moore River Native Settlement. Ladies, most of you are familiar with our work here, the training of domestic servants and farm laborers. I would like to thank you for your continuing support. Hundreds of half-caste children have been gathered up and brought here to be given the benefit of everything our culture has to offer. For if we are to fit and train such children for the future, they cannot be left as they are. And in spite of himself, the native must be helped.
People in general are really afraid of the power and the authority that God has given to us. They're afraid of it.